of insane bullshit.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and if I'm half as good as I pretend to be at audio production, you just got a lovely message from my host companion, Sejan Sarowick. Sejan?
Well, this would be one of those ideal moments for you to remember that you forgot to hit record on my line.
No, I mean, it was a good message. It was a good message considering what we are covering today for Brendan Fraser History Month is a film that our Lord and Savior, Brendan Fraser, is ashamed of. So
I have a question about that. Well, I guess we're going to... So at what point when you're working on a movie like this, do you realize it is what it is? Because, there's no way it was, a surprise. When you sat down in the theater and saw what this is, there was no moment where you went, oh no, it's gone bad. Everything looked great until now. That just doesn't happen, right?
I mean, it depends on how it's shot. It depends on what you're doing. I don't know.
You don't film a music video in the too tight jumpsuit with Ken Jeong rapping behind you and think, yeah, this is the one. This is the joke. This is the bit.
The problem is all the stuff that happens after that whole music video that you're referring to might be the best stuff in the film. Literally, the credits roll is all you need to watch of this movie. And honestly, if we weren't here being philosophical and academic about the work of Brendan Fraser in honor of Brendan Fraser History Month, I don't think I would watch this movie.
There today, Dev. I'm just gonna tell you that.
No. I'm just saying, if we weren't trying to do our due diligence and cover every film that he's been a part of as a way to honor Brendan Fraser, I think honoring him best would be to never talk of this movie again. So, this is it. This is our Furry Vengeance episode.
Yeah.
And then we're going to put it in a box, and we're going to wrap that box in chains, and we're going to throw it in the river. And then two French girls are going to find it at the end.
And remake it.
Yes, I don't... Oof. Yeah, Furry Vengeance was a movie. Let's say that. It was a movie. It wasn't a sandwich. And there's a lot in it that, got me thinking. This is not a movie that I was upset that I was watching. But I think if you're someone working on a project, while you're working on the project, you're not thinking about how is this going to turn out. If you're good at it. Does that make sense? I mean, we're very different.
Because I can't tell you how many times that I have read a script and thought, well, this isn't going to be the best show, but this will be a fun group of people to work with, or we can do something with it. There are those types out there. Sometimes they're surprises. Sometimes you think one way and it comes out better in the end. Sometimes you think it's going to be a blast and it comes out terrible. I'm not saying that it's a full spectrum of possibilities when you are doing anything creative, right? Yes. But there is a moment, there has to be a moment where at least once in your life you're on a creative endeavor and it occurs to you, oh, this isn't going well, right? And then in that moment you have a decision to make, right? Do you continue with this endeavor for any reason, or is this the time to back away, right? And sometimes that's not easy. If you're for instance, an actor on a contract, that's not necessarily the easiest choice to make. I get that. But that means that you kind of have to then decide in that moment, all right, I can either become the stink down the hall, right? The idea of I'm going to be the guy that just shows up to work half-assed and phone it in. And we've seen that happen. We've seen those kinds of performances from great actors who are just in movies that they clearly don't want to be in, right? But then the other way you go with it, and this is where I think we're going to find the only real bright spot of this movie today to talk about. You can go with the idea that Brendan Fraser, and not just Brendan Fraser, but a lot of people in this movie clearly just decided they were just going to have some fun. It almost feels like those kinds of movies like we joke about with Adam Sandler all the time, or I always talk about The Tourist, where Johnny Depp and Angelina Jolie clearly just wanted to go on vacation in Italy, and so they brought Paul Bettany along and filmed the movie to finance it. Right?
Oh, you can always bring Paul Bettany along. That's something that everyone should be aware of. If you want to go somewhere and you need a third, Paul Bettany is up for it.
Well, and he has his own film crew, so you can just make a movie while you're doing it. It'll finance the whole vacation. That's the trick. That's the only reason Avengers ever got made.
Age of Ultron, but yeah,
I meant as a whole. Yeah. So there's this moment for you as you're watching a project like this where it is clearly not working, but you have to admit that Fraser's definitely acting. There's no moment where he's like phoning it in. I think a week or two ago I had mentioned kind of this idea that Fraser always, like puts the effort in and always kind of is present and doesn't, even though he may not like the project he's working on, he always makes sure that it's going to be a viable thing at the end, right? And you said, well, I don't know, we have yet to watch Furry Vengeance. Well, now we have, and I stand by that statement.
So here's what I think the big issue of Furry Vengeance is. This film,
there's too many to count.
Well,
I keep trying to take a drink, and you keep saying these absurd things.
Why don't you take a drink and let me talk for a second? Then no, what it is. This film, the way that it's structured, the way the narrative is structured, I think it would be very easy to sort of get that road hypnosis that people talk about. Mm-hmm. Where like you just lose track of time and what's going on, like velocitosis, I think it might be what it's called, whatever. Because this movie is the cosign, it is the inverse of literally every other movie that I think I've ever seen, in the fact that the main character continually gets worse and worse, and it is harder and harder to root for him.
Yeah, I mean, that raccoon, I like, he just becomes so mean by the end.
Yeah, I was talking about Brendan Fraser, but you're not wrong.
He's not the main character of this movie.
That raccoon is definitely the main character of the movie.
He is literally in moment one and the final moment as it closed. Like, he is the main, he is the protagonist. He's not even, like, he is the only person, for lack of a better word in the moment, he is the only character worth following for this entire thing, if you want to view it as a story. In any form of a happy story, even. I mean, Brendan Fraser is a villain.
Brendan Fraser's villain. It's appropriate.
He's not the main villain, but he's worse. He's the spineless villain. He's like the guy that you know is just doing it because somebody bigger than him is making him do it, but he's still not putting his foot down. And then in the end, he puts his foot down. In any other movie, that would be Iago. That would be, you know what I mean? Like
it's Dave Foley in Brain Candy to pick a movie at random.
But like he would be pushed to the side as a goofy little comedic character that in the end would turn on his boss, and we would all have that really heartwarming moment of like, yeah, he finally stood up for himself. But we wouldn't be focused on him. This movie wants you to believe that Brendan Fraser is the main character of this film, and at no point do they earn that.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. So the movie, I am in agreement with you. Let us say that Paris is the capital of France. So we're back in agreement, and move forward with the raccoon is definitely the protagonist of this film. Mm-hmm. That's not how the film is made. That is not how the film is centered at all. Yeah, no. The centering and the protagonist in the eyes of the filmmaker is Brendan Fraser, right? So if we're going to go down that road with Brendan Fraser, right? Right now what we're trying to do is being Brendan Fraser during something like Furry Vengeance. We're interspacing, where whatever reference you need to understand the fact that we're trying to get into Brendan Fraser's mindset during the filming of this movie. And as a film that is centered around Dan, I can't think of his last name, and I'm really mad about that right now. Sanders. So it rhymes, Dan Sanders. Ranger Dan is all I want to call him. And,
I mean, yeah.
but yeah, so if it's centered as with Ranger Dan Sanders, and you're playing Dan Sanders, this film, as you're watching it slowly and methodically go off of the rails into a ravine, somehow land on a second track of train tracks, and then go off those rails into the portal from Portal that is connected to the top of the whole thing, and it is just a never-ending collapse, this film.
I like and then what's more astounding is how that metaphor you just created is probably the closest you'll ever get to try and explain to somebody how poorly this movie goes sideways. This movie breaks bad, and it is not even an inch closer than you could than we were before. Yeah. This movie is infinitely weirdly made. It was okay. So the way that I kept thinking about it as I was watching it is, this is a movie within a movie. This is this is one of those ones where if you watched a movie and they were going to go out to a bad movie night, or they were going to go to a date movie, or there was a preview on TV, Furry Vengeance is the movie within the other movie. It's the joke movie that you're just oh
it's
yeah,
Merman.
They probably would do
it's
something.
Merman. You're not wrong.
Yeah. It is ridiculous. Like I was watching this movie thinking, this is not a movie meant to be like seen, right? It's basically like Muzak for film. Do they do that?
I mean, maybe that's what it started out as, and then the investors in Abu Dhabi are like, "Let's make this a real movie, though."
But I do want to also put this out there. Like I was not kidding when I said it's not just Brendan Fraser, because you also have like you have Ken Jeong, you have Angela Kinsey. I mean Brooke Shields as his wife. You mentioned earlier as Tammy Sanders. We will name her. Like, but even in the background, you have guys like Patrice and Jim Norton. Like Patrice O'Neill and Jim Norton are there.
Dude,
like,
Eugene Cordero,
Samantha Bee,
like Eugene Cordero, totally thinned out everything that he had to be the Eugene Cordero we know now, and probably gave it to Brendan Fraser. He's like, I like this muffin top, and Eugene Cordero's like, we can go make a dangerous deal in these woods, these northeastern woods that are playing for Oregon in this movie.
Yeah, with this raccoon king that will oversee us all. Oh man!
But that's the thing. But if you're centered and you're playing Dan Sanders, and that's the journey. You've read the script, though. And this is not one of those movies where that final set piece is the first thing you do.
No, right.
That final set piece is the last thing that you're going to shoot because of just how much is involved. You want to make sure, I mean, maybe you'd get it out of the way, and maybe that's what they did. Maybe they shot this final set piece where Brendan Fraser gets to be the hero. He gets to break good. And there's your whole thing. So knowing that is coming, all of the tumultuous downfall that is the preceding 70 minutes of this film, like it's just gonna make that redemption that much better. That like this is the hole that this character has allowed himself to go down.
Well, and you know, so at this point in his career, he's not somebody that's played anybody that's a major terrible person yet, right? Like he is kind of dipped into that pool with like Monkey Bone and stuff like that. But even like
Monkey Bone, he's just sort of he has ennui. Like we don't vilify him for that.
But when he is him,
but when he plays Monkey Bone, yes, okay, yeah,
right?
sorry.
Like that might be So it's not that he's never played a villainous character, but there is something to the idea that it's never been one that's gotten to be like explored. Like he literally goes to therapy in this movie to like talk about his issues and things like that. Like there is definite appeal there for the guy that is supposed to be, you know, the mummy dude to do something like that, because this is also kind of aiming towards that same audience, right? Like younger, family friendly audience, just obviously not like the whole family, because I think there's a certain area in everybody's life where they just don't want to watch movies like this because they're too cool for school. And his son is squarely in it this entire movie, and the most annoying kid in any movie I've seen in a long time.
Oh, Sejan.
Sorry.
No.
A long-winded way for me to get to that son and talk about what a fucking pain in the
Tyler Sanders, who you just want to slap the whole movie.
Yeah.
And he hasn't worked since 2013. He's alive though. I did check that out because I'm like, oh, is there something sad here? No, he worked for 3 more years after Furry Vengeance, and then it was finally revealed that Amber was a bunch of squirrels in a human girl costume, and he could never trust again. Like that's what I kept waiting for the whole movie.
I was waiting for the reveal that she was like a time like goddess, like Mother Nature or something. That because they play with that idea at some point where they show Brendan Fraser as not just Dan Sanders, but every invading white male figure that has come into this area that has then mysteriously run off or gone missing, right? So this idea that he keeps coming back, it's like a parable at that point, where the futility of man as they try and take over this one forest that they keep getting run out of, and it's all played by this one guy, by Brendan Fraser, and and that might be the best gag in the whole movie, right? But then if that is going to be the world that we now live in, right? If that is the step this movie takes to say this is how absurd we're going to go, then this girl who we never get a last name on, and is supposed to be like the love interest for this boy in this movie, and she only kind of appears with nobody else around, and she has this love of nature and all of this stuff. I was like, oh, are we gonna find out that she was gonna speak for the trees at some point, and it just never happens. It never comes to it. And I was like,
well, she kind of speaks for the trees, but then Tyler's like, you don't understand technology. Let me kick this off in a bit of white knighting that made me retch. I'm just like, why are you doing that? Like, it's but if it wasn't for the fact that the raccoon pretty much had his own key to the model home in the Rocky Springs development,
Yeah,
I would have believed that Amber was the animal's way of getting into the house.
yeah.
By like, oh, we'll dress up as a cute girl and trick their teenage son into dating us.
That fucking raccoon. Yes, Amber, my familiar, let me in.
Yeah. So, but I think that's it. So, I think that Brendan Fraser is just like, it's this continual downfall, but I have this redemption arc at the end. And then, no amount of what happens. The moment where he is like, the beavers aren't home, all right, blow it up. I'm like, oh, you just kicked the fucking cat, man. Well, I can't do it. It's so hard to can't root for you.
What's wild about that is like they clearly, you know, he's gonna say do it, and he gets wishy-washy about it, and it just makes you hate him more. There's not like a commitment to either being the worst or being the best. Like, and that's not on the actor, it's the script at that point. The story really wants you to believe that this guy is worthy of you paying attention, of calling him the hero, quote unquote, of this film. So in those moments when he has to do terrible shit, they don't let him do it. They make him like flounder on it in a way that just makes him even worse because he just becomes non-committal, which is no fun to ever watch.
I will say that one moment in the film where he flounders on destroying the beaver dam, that is the only time the script kind of gets it. Where it's like, well, let's see how much it would cost to remove it, ecologically. We're a green company. And then when he finds, oh, it's $50,000? Yeah, just blow it up. And it's just like, oh, now you're a villain. You just became a villain. The transformation is complete.
I think the biggest issue this movie has is that there's more than one Sanders family member. Like it's not just
if it were just him. Yeah, if it were just Rob Riggles,
just him.
You fucked your own movie, Raccoon Man.
Yeah, right. The idea of trying to give him this whole story about the wife and the son that he's also trying to like be there for. All they serve as is just a handhold for him to say, well, I can't just lose my job because I have a family, right? So there's this.
Well, they
weird
also
idea.
exist so that he can see that he and the raccoon are kindred spirits. Oh, you're just trying to take care of your family, like I've been doing. Yeah, we're not so different. Let's grab a beer.
Yeah, it's such a so this movie. Yeah, so this movie is this movie, right? Then piled on top of that is that this movie just gets, as Devin kind of like implied, explicitly said earlier, it gets crazier and crazier as it goes. So you start off with this baseline of, oh, this is just not a very good movie to begin with. And I honestly believe that this movie must have been shot in chronological order because I feel like every time this movie took a step to like get crazier, it was to try and keep me invested. Like, okay, this is not the best movie. Oh, but the animals talk to each other. Wait, what? Okay, I gotta see this for a a little bit longer.
The animals talk to each other in goddamn comic strips. I don't.
Yeah, the thought bubbles. This movie is the epitome of like tell. Like, even though it's all they can do is show because the animals can't actually talk. Go all the way. If you're gonna CGI facial expressions and nonsensical movements, and they're gonna scream, then just have them talk.
And it's not like there's not one sequence where you have them talk. Exactly. Where he's on mushrooms. And then that totally works as like a precursor to something like Sausage Party, where drugs are how we can talk to those that we cannot communicate with.
It's just fucking this movie just piles on some by the time that Wilson shows up, Toby Huss shows up as the security guard, and it has like the trunk full of guns in the back, and I was full on ready for this to become like an actual Predator style in the woods. I thought we were going to see blood by the end of this movie, and it doesn't help that the finale of this movie has a horror movie-esque moment where Wilson is tied to the top. Wilson is the town security guard. For anybody that didn't bother to watch this movie, I'm not going to hold that against you. But Wilson is the town security guard that's actually owned by the company, so he's not true police.
Lyman.
And he is tied to the top of this truck and then sent raving into crowds of people at like high speed. Like this would be a horror movie in 2020.
I mean, it's a horror movie in 2010 when it comes out. This movie, by all accounts, it feels like Poltergeist. It feels like it's a nature horror film, but with a family-friendly comedy lean. It's frogs. It is crazy. Jaws. It is so much nature doesn't fucking want you here, but you're too oblivious because of society to notice. And then the people that continue to come out of the woodworks, Wallace Shaw being the therapist.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, okay. And that whole sequence, it just felt like it. Let's station it alongside what this honestly feels like. And it's Brendan Fraser, so he's done Looney Tunes back in action at this point. This is 6 years removed from that. It feels like the Michigan J. Frog cartoon sort of like blown out into like the most absurd, horrific proportions.
Yeah.
Because nobody believes him.
Yeah, I was
which
say,
is like
one of my least favorite tropes in movies is, and it's not like, and when I say that, I don't mean like I think it's overused. I think it's poorly done. I think it can be done well, not here, but I think it can be done well when somebody is not being believed, right? When there is a, but I personally like. It is such a like an innate like fear of mine that like I am gonna someday have to like speak the truth and nobody will believe me. Like I grew up on the Crucible, right? I was and Catholic, so like I have a lot going.
You grew up in New England. Let's
right,
just
let's just
cover it all.
Yeah, so this idea that like he is just like, no, this is happening, and then what is even worse is by the end of this film, everybody then like sees that he was right the whole time. Like clearly the animals are like banding together to like come against it like that. But nobody at any point says to him, "We're sorry we sent you to a doctor with this. Like we are so sorry that we didn't believe you." There's never that moment.
The closest it gets to is, "I'll never doubt you again." And then she's tackled by a man in a skunk costume, and I'm just like, why? Why wasn't it just a regular person? Why did you make it someone in a costume? Because it almost makes it scarier. That like these animals don't give a fuck. You went out there and you made your weird alliance with them, Dan, but they don't care about you. They want blood. They want furry vengeance.
Yeah.
And no human
now that
is
you've
safe.
said that it's like frogs, I want to see this movie, but with like an NC-17 like horror movie like schlock spin to it. I think this movie would be like with this. I mean, basically, you could put the same movie out, just add blood splatter in a few scenes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Frogs is really. I love the movie Frogs. It's one of my favorite like nature horror films. But then I always think about it when it's because it's not just that like they're developers who are trying to come in and develop it. They're legitimately upper class people who are throwing their money around without any disregard for the consequences, and that is like Frogs to a T. And you know what this actually is? You mentioned that it's a movie within a movie. This is a Wish and Bedazzled. That's what this movie is. It is a Wish and Bedazzled extended to a feature length. Because it is. He makes the wish that I wish I had a family and a good job and all this. And then the devilish turn that Elizabeth Hurley slips in there is the fact that they don't fucking want you there.
Yeah, the animals are all rising, like, and have the intelligence to rise up against you.
Yeah.
Because the other side of this movie that gets even crazier is that, like, the animals, specifically the raccoon, are capable of these, like, complex machines that they are building in order to, let's face it, murder people. Like, they're while we don't see anybody die in this movie, it is pretty heavily implied that they
all fell into comas. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, they have the ability to murder that is just not reached its fruition yet, right? Like nothing is stopping that raccoon but chance at this point. Like,
let's be honest. Rob Riggles dies. And then they're like,
they keep saying he disappeared on me is the line that Ken Jeong.
Well, and the reason why they say that is disappeared on me is fine for somebody who went over a fucking ravine because his car was hit by a boulder, right? They're not checking ravines. There are so many. You want to find some dead bodies? Go ravine plunging. That's not a term, but go explore some ravines. You gonna find some dead bodies. I guarantee it. Bring a stick. They're fun to poke. Stand by me if you get scared. Anywho, back to Rocking the Suburbs. Rob Riggles dies, and it has to be one of those situations where they're like, ooh, we just killed the guy in the first 5 minutes of this movie. Let's ADR him making a phone call quitting his job. That is an ADR choice.
Yes.
That is Rob Riggles. We're going to call you up on the phone. Can you say this? All
we
right,
we
thank
we
you.
we screened the movie and realized that it does indeed look like you in fact got murdered in the first 10 minutes, and that's
Because you
just not
did.
playing well.
Because you did. Like, let's be. We were all on set and we're like, yeah, we're killing Rob Riggles today, right? But then we thought no one's gonna care because he was a bad guy. Turns out people cared. Turns out the MPAA is like, this is an NC-17 movie because you're using Rube Goldberg for evil. It should only be used to deliver birthday fries to the children. Sorry.
But yes, Robert Gill dies in the beginning of this movie for sure, and then there is this off-screen line of like, Mr. Lyman, I quit," and it's just like, yeah, you might as well have been saying that through like a fucking like sock, like it is so out of sync with everything else of the audio of the movie, and that's the other crazy thing is the actual care put into, or lack of care actually put into things. And I don't want to say lack of care. That's not fair. I am going to take that back, because I never believe that anybody is out there like just possibly doing their fucking worst. But man, some of the CGI in this movie, some of the ADR in this movie, there is just moments where movie technicality for a 2010 film, there is no excuse why a movie that can afford to have the cast that it has just then decided it was just not going to bother with any of the special effects.
Yeah, that's a very good observation. You know what's an observation that I just need to bring to the table? The other teachers at the school that Brooke Shields works at,
Mm-hmm.
they looked like sallow and drained and dead. Like, it feels like there's something, we got trouble here in River City. A capital T, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for animals.
Yeah, well,
Like,
there's this weird element, like I'm going to use Parks and Rec as a point of reference, not because I think this movie evokes it in any way, but because I think it's a good way to kind of just visualize this idea. They want you to believe that it is like a Pawnee style, like everybody there. It's it's a great town trying to do great things, but on the individual basis, everybody's a bit of a dip, right? And like, so that it's this idea that like we're supposed to feel bad that Brendan Fraser and Lyman Company and all this stuff, right? Like they're coming in and ruining this forest. First of all, there's this weird focus on nothing but the forest, but then everything to do with the kid and the mom have to do with the town, right? And so it feels like two different movies because there are these two different like settings that we're really kind of talking about. So that's one of the big reasons why I think the family kind of ruins the whole thing, for like really just it becomes a distraction, because like this moment where you're talking about where they show all the other teachers, there's this weird focus on like how goofy this town is, like how quirky these people are, these individuals. They're just like, she is the best thing to come and happen to these people in a while. We get the weird story about the math teacher no longer being there for the rest of the year from Samantha Bee, right? Like so there's this whole other subplot that has to do with the town being kind of like off, but in a fun way. And that's great, but like that has nothing to do with the entire spine of this movie.
all
Being
it
this,
does
like,
is
development
distract.
Yeah. It's so pointless.
Is distract. That moment where she's sitting there planning and Tyler like spies on his mom. Well, those teachers never teach. Is the other thing. They're always together in assemblies. So, like, when is the teaching getting done? So he comes in the spy, and the guy who's sitting next to Brooke Shields, I'm just like, what's your fucking story? Dude who's, like, eating skin tags off his arm and looks really sweaty for what does not look like a hot room.
Yeah, there's, I mean, what it really feels like is, I think the idea is supposed to be is that even this town, like nature in general, should just be allowed to take over. Even this town should go, which again leans into this idea that it becomes more of this like this horror movie-esque of like the animals are just gonna have to go through and just slaughter everybody, right? And it leads to, I mean, this moment that I talked about where the truck drives into this crowd. But what I didn't mention is right after that, Ken Jeong then pulling out a rifle and aiming it at the crowd and missing the guy he was aiming for because he gets thrown off by Brendan Fraser. So he literally like it is just fucking buck wild, because basically what you're expecting then at this point is everybody's just going to just evacuate and never come back. We've learned that the animals here have united against us. We need to go and let the government come in and figure this shit out. But like I think the weird added scene at the end, because it was definitely not planned, but the added scene of the raccoons sitting in the forest the like 3 months later, but then we're just going to CGI everything so we didn't have to get anybody back on set. Like there's this implication that Dan has become this park ranger, to become Ranger Dan, and like again, we get no thought that that's where he's going to go at the end of this movie. Like, we just get the idea that he's grown up a little bit and he realizes he's not going to destroy the forest. But this weird fucking like bit for like 10 seconds that they throw in with a CGI picture of him in a doofy
Park ranger outfit.
but no, but it's very specifically Smokey the Bear. Like,
Yeah.
it's basically just Brendan Fraser's face just thrown over a Smokey the Bear picture and then like thrown up on the tree, and we're supposed to believe that he's gone so far that way that he's become the ranger of town, I guess. Like, this movie just wants you to believe that humans in general should just have not have ever been here, but not in any way that feels like meaningful or like I learned a lesson by the end of it. It feels like, oh my god, like danger, stay away. like nature is not to be fucked with because it will destroy you.
Because you're not wrong, because that clearly printed and bound at the high school library book that leads to
The
what
three
is
ring binder.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's not a 3-ring binder. It's one of those weird, I don't know what it's called. It's the plastic binding, that like really cheap plastic binding. Like,
yeah, it's what they used to make our like sixth
reports,
year,
yeah.
like, well, very specifically, like your sixth year, you're gonna graduate. This is your like elementary school thesis project, essentially. I forget what they call them now, but like they make kids do like those major projects to prove
like
that they've learned
capstone
something.
and such.
Capstone, that's the word I'm looking for. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you get one of those really nice binders that has like 5 rings and a plastic covering and all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, like every one of those pages in that book is just in a slip-on plastic cover that's just put in that binder.
It is even worse than that. It is a plastic like it's like lithographing. It's weird. It's what we did. I loved doing it in elementary school, because like if I would write stories and I'd illustrate them, and then I'd go to the secretary and be like, "Can you bind this for me?" And she'd put in this like shitty little plastic binding, and then I would put them in the library to one day be the basis for a Brendan Fraser film. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm sorry for this movie. No, it's that book that they find that just has all that information in it. It says that Stony Ridge was difficult to settle, but why is there a town there then? Mm-hmm. Like what? Like, no, apparently it wasn't, because one of these idiots actually made it work. Maybe the hippie, because he was the last one. It doesn't, there's no sense of like coherence to this movie.
Verisimilitude. There's no truth to this film. No, nothing depends on anything else in this movie. Things just happen because it's convenient for them to happen, right? And it's just another sign of just poor filmmaking. I mean, like, you know, I don't want to like bash movies like this. Like, this feels really bad, but like, I just don't know how else to view this film, right? Like, there's just so much that goes on that just makes you scratch your head. You talked about the weird like plastic binding and everything that all that stuff is in, right? Did you notice that the letter that they find, or I guess the contract that they find that has his name on it? When I say they, I mean the kids. Yeah. Find the contract that Dan signed, and it's what makes his son realize that his dad's been, you know, fucking around. It's laminated. They pick it up out and it's covered in plastic, and it's got like a plastic like border to it. It is laminated.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
well, you're working in the woods, Siegen. You don't want to just have paper.
The only thing I could think is that there was a prop person on set that was not a very good one, that their thought was, well, I need to protect this. We're in nature. We're outside. So I'm going to laminate this prop. Not thinking like in the world of the film, why the hell would this thing be laminated? Like, it felt like it was a decision by the movie, right? And it feels like that throughout everything, is that it was just like somebody came in and said, well, the common sense thing to do is to not have, you know, the animal. We need the animals to be able to say to each other A, B, and C, but we're not going to have them talk because animals can't talk. How will we show this? And somebody else thought, well, I know, we'll cartoon in thought bubbles over them because that's easy. We'll replay other parts of the movie over this part of the movie so that people remember what they just watched. Like, oh, okay.
And maybe also Braveheart. Because sure. That was my one disappointing moment in this movie, was the Braveheart sequence, because I wish that William Wallace had been Brendan Fraser. If it had been Brendan Fraser as William Wallace in that moment, and then, oh God, it's just like this guy who like bound the people together against us, but we still kicked their ass.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, for me, this movie just doesn't commit to
No,
anything, right?
no.
And so in that, you say you wish it was Brendan Fraser there. Definitely agree. I also wish we then saw the raccoon with blue paint on his face. You know what I mean? Like I wish that. I mean, it's implied he's seen Braveheart, right?
Yes, apparently. Or he knew William Wallace because he's a magical, like, raccoon. Raccoons live forever. Like, let's just talk about that. That's how dumb humans used to be. The term, I haven't seen you in a coon's age, comes from the fact that back then, people thought raccoons lived forever.
Yeah.
Because they all looked similar. With the markings and everything, it's very difficult to distinguish two raccoons from each other. And that's where they're like, oh my god, that's the same raccoon I saw 70 years ago. Raccoons are immortal.
They must be immortal.
They must be immortal.
Oh, man.
Man, humans are dumb. Sorry.
I will always giggle at a bear driving a small cart, though. I gotta say.
Oh, yeah.
Oh
my god, bear is driving. How can that be? I will not always giggle at a porta potty scene. I'm just like, this is.
That was one of those early moments where you're like, why does nobody believe him? Why does nobody believe him? He's 50 feet in the air and upside down on a porta potty. At this point, you have to believe something is happening that is out of his control, right?
How does nobody else hear the crow? That crow is not being quiet. That's the whole bit.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I don't. And then the car, like, just my car is driving itself right now.
Yeah.
Like, please just keep looking at, because the animals aren't trying to make him look like a fool. That's not part of their MO.
No, they're trying to murder him. They're trying to kill him, and they're just not succeeding. That's what I mean, is the only thing stopping this raccoon from being a full-on serial killer is just, like, circumstance. Like, otherwise he would happily have, a number of bodies on his conscience.
I could just see him, like, filing his nails. Like, yeah, no, that's my bodies. That's my body pile.
Oh, man.
Sorry, Eugene Cordero's cheese.
No, I just had these weird Hannibal thoughts of the raccoon at home with a Rolodex full of people that he is intending to one day murder and eat, and just like going through it today and deciding, yes, today I shall fuck up Dan's life. Thank you, yes.
So he's like the immortal from Life, the Universe, and Everything, the Douglas Adams book, where he accidentally became immortal, so his mind doesn't know how to handle his immortality. So what he decides is, I'm going to insult every person in the universe in alphabetical order.
Right.
To their face. And that's just his life. So we know that raccoons are immortal. And unlike that noble immortal from the Douglas Adams book, this raccoon has decided, I'm going to just murder everybody in reverse alphabetical order.
Well, yeah, it's just, there's no stakes anywhere in this movie, for anybody. It's just fucking, so you can't even talk about the raccoon. We're eventually told he has a family that he was trying to protect.
Bullshit.
Never saw that.
Bullshit.
Yeah. But we're never given this implication that he's doing it for any reason other than just this is mine, right? And I think that's the other thing that's really weird, is there's this prevalent idea throughout this movie that animals don't also feel this idea of ownership, because this isn't about animals protecting themselves because they're dying. We haven't actually seen or heard about any type of species disappearing or a migratory pattern is getting fucked up or some known thing that's ooh, that's a bad we should not be here. And it's not that it's not possible. This movie just doesn't take advantage of that. So instead we're just left with this raccoon that's just beating the shit out of a guy because it's his house. He wants to stay. It's my house. You go away. Mine now. And which is very raccoon-like, I will say. But
is it raccoon-like? To me, I would think raccoons would love suburbia coming in, because then they get to steal all the delicious foods that humans eat.
Well, but saying that the house then belongs to them, not that the house was built, we don't care about that, but now it is ours. It's not yours.
Oh yeah,
anymore.
No, I get
that is but they don't even lean into that.
They don't even lean into that.
They don't give you anything other than just man coming into nature bad, so nature fight back. That is the story. And then every man you meet, every human you meet in this movie is quirky in a way that you're just is just a little off-putting, just a tiny bit off-putting.
Yeah. What I would like to celebrate is half raccoon Brooke Shields.
That moment in the nightmare.
That moment in the nightmare that then gets a little blooper in the credits reel. Honestly, I'm not kidding when I say that the credits reel is the best part of this movie. I stand by the weird fact that cover of
Everybody,
insane to the membrane.
yeah, and I think everybody on this film understood exactly what it was at some point. Everybody kind of clicked at some point and said, "Oh, this is not going to be the Oscar winner," right? So what they decide to do instead is everybody decides on set that they're just going to have some fun together in the woods, right? It feels like it is a family on vacation that is just filming this movie. Like, and you say the bloopers are the best part, and I think that's exactly why. Is I think that moment just came for everybody, that they realized how goofy this movie was going to be, and everybody just decides to go with it because it's just something to do, right? Like, I mean, and that is the only saving grace of this film, is that there isn't any moment where I was cringing because the actor clearly didn't want to be there, which is a small thing I will give it. Is it felt like everybody was there, was perfectly fine to be working on it. It just wasn't their focus.
Yeah, but it's weird to think of them as bloopers. It legitimately feels like we have a couple extra days to shoot. Let's knock up a mock risky business. Like the Blue Lagoon that becomes Furry Lagoon, which is a great reference because Brooke Shields, but then also like, what set was that? Was it just green screen? The whole thing just feels crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts. It's crazier and crazier. This movie just never stops. I mean, by the end of this movie, Ken Jeong, who misses his cue, by the way, and they leave it in the movie wonderfully, where he jumps and he's supposed to dive into the bounty like caterpillar,
Yeah.
but like misses the hole and has to then like struggle to find it and crawl inside. And like, as an actor, does his job. Like missed his cue by just a foot, but he recovers in character and everything is fine. You don't use that shot, guys.
You
But
do
he makes
though.
his way in, and he gets dragged off into the woods. Like the end of this movie is Ken Jeong diving into that caterpillar, the animals entering the other end, and then the bear hooking it up to a golf cart and driving it off into the woods, where presumably they murder and eat Ken Jeong.
Yeah, no, that's what happens. And then they're hungry again in an hour. I'm so mad at myself for that joke. Sometimes we don't think before we speak, people.
You edit these things.
I know, but I'm keeping it in there because it was a pretty solid, like, quick zinger. But no, whatever. I'm sorry. I know I edit them. Don't talk about how the sausage is made. There's also some moments where Ken Jeong also, like, is a part of insensitive humor because it's fake Chinese that he's talking. Like it's gibberish Chinese that's like just for the bit, and I'm just like, who is this for now? What was this joke? Like at the time, did you guys really think, oh, this will be funny? And then the man with the doctorate agreed. I don't know, that one moment really stood out to me. As did the moment where Angela Kinsey was like, oh, we can do buffalo burgers and have a big powwow with teepees. Oh, you mean the other kind of Indians? It's just like, what?
So we should turn our focus for a second here. 45 minutes into talking about this movie, talking about its reception, right? Because it's not well received at all. Like, it is bottom of the barrel, probably the worst movie that we've seen as far as for Brendan Fraser in terms of critical reviews. And audience reviews are more favorable at the time, but not immensely. Like, I think it has like a solid like 7% as far as critics go on Rotten Tomatoes versus 37% from audience, right? Those numbers are not solid, but I'm sure that they're a little bit different than that, but essentially that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that captures the idea of like how this movie is received at the time. The fucking buck wild thing to me is that since this movie came out, it has garnered a really popular following, not in like a cult way of like, oh my god, let's watch this bad Brendan Fraser movie and we'll all fall in love with him again, like, but in a like my 3-year-old needed something to watch like area. I actually, like, in researching this movie just to make sure that I like knew all of the like why it went so off the rails, and still could not put my finger on it, but I found so many different places, like the Family Center reviews that do like the whole like rating where they talk about like all the different sex scenes and all that sort of stuff.
PTC.
Like they really like this stuff. The American Humane Society, which actually is the ones responsible for overseeing animals in film, so a lot of movies that have a lot of animals in them often get like a quick review and shout out and you can go and you can see, okay, exactly at this moment this happens to an animal. If that's not something you're cool with, don't watch this movie, right? Like like that kind of review actually seems very favorable towards this movie, mostly because a lot of it is just CGI animal and not real animals.
Yeah, the
Like
only
there's
real animal that Brendan Fraser worked with is the turkey in the turkey scene.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's
So like
and what is
so
it? That's when he's eating bacon and the turkey is like nearby.
yeah, and Brooke Shields is giving him shit for eating turkey bacon in front of
How's
a
he gonna
turkey,
know it's not bacon?
as if I did not want spend hours of my life watching Matt and Trey feed a pig actual bacon for on the old South Park DVDs. Oh man, I was just that's like the only reference in that moment I could think of. I was just like, I've watched a pig eat actual bacon. This is fine.
I've imagined a pig eating humans. Thanks,
Oh,
Snatch.
man. But the yeah. See, this movie just brings out all sorts of horrific thoughts. Yeah, but this movie has this really weird, to the point where on Amazon, it holds a pretty respectable 4.5 out of 5, with 75% of the reviews being 5-star reviews. And now, one might say, well, that's 75. That 75% of those people got paid a lot of money to review this movie, but it can't possibly be that. But if you look at every one of the 5-star reviews, every single one of them is like, yeah, me and my 7-year-old, me and my 6-year-old, or me and my kids watched this a lot when they were 6 or 7, and now they're grown up. So I love this movie because it makes me think of that time with them. Like it hits in that way. And I did text you as I was watching it the other day. Man, like 7-year-old me would have thought this was the height of comedy. I totally would have been down for just all of the slapsticky like nonsense in this film. Like we talk about how scary this movie is, but that's because as like 30 something year old dudes, it horrifies us that our smart car might drive itself as we're stuck in the window and we will run into a tree and be murdered. As a kid, like the idea of the smart car taking over itself and running off because the raccoons pulled on the wires funny would have been fucking hilarious. What I'm getting at is like 7-year-olds are dark and disturbing people.
Yeah, they don't know to fear the world yet. Everything's a joke to them. Yeah, this is a kids movie. It's a kids movie. And also that Amazon, everybody being positive about it, you need to remember that most people are actively seeking out that film on Amazon.
Yeah.
That's what I always have to tell myself. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm trying to think of maybe one of the worst movies. Sinbad, right? Through Beyond the Veil of the Mists, which is a good movie and definitely has merit as a reason why it would exist and all of that. But the fact that it has like 5 stars means that the only people who are coming here and bothering to leave a review are the type of people who watch this movie and can say this is a bit of animation history.
Oh, there's definitely retail bias.
Yeah.
Because in addition to that, you also have to consider that people spend money on it. So there's also this idea that people will also rate it better because they spent the money already. So either they were already coming here for it because they knew they loved it, or because they spent money on it, they probably say they loved it. So yes, you definitely have to take that into account. But again, 75% out of thousands of reviews. Like, it's not just like, oh, there's 100 reviews and 75 of them are good. Like, on Amazon right now, there is 1,220 reviews of this movie, and 75% of them are 5-star. And, like, 3% of them are 1-star. So there's even, like, a range in between. And so there is this weird, like, love for this film that comes from the fact that it speaks to some very childish parts of our heart, right? And like I can see that for sure. It's just that normally that's the kind of thing that like we don't like it when we're pandered to in that way. And I think this movie succeeds only in that realm, succeeds only because it wasn't a huge success. It wasn't shoved down our throats. It's not something people bring up all the time, right? Because if it got that treatment of like, yeah, it's a bad movie, but it's a kids movie, so we love it. And that was constantly why we talked about this film. You know that would then create like an upswing in the other direction of people being like, nah, fuck this movie, right? So it kind of is. It's saved by its own
it's innocuous.
Own failure. It's saved by its own failure. Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's not a John Carter of Mars.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, do you know how much it made? Was it considered a financial success at all, or
no?
That's not something I was able to look up.
So it had too big of a budget. I don't even have this up in front of me. The budget for it was insane. Like, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that there's a lot of CGI and stuff like that, right? And it made $20 million altogether in like including foreign markets and stuff like that. So like it fell on its face. It cost too much to make and didn't make any money back. And again, I don't know if that's necessarily something that anybody that like put this movie out was surprised about. Because the other thing is that this movie, it wasn't celebrated in the marketing either. It's not like they were just like
the
man
greatest movie ever is
right. Like this
coming
movie kind
soon.
of just like got shit out at some point, and like we all kind of ignored it, and to the point where people don't even like know this movie. Like one of the wild things about doing this movie, and one of the reasons I've really wanted to do it, is because there's been a good number of people that have celebrated the fact that we do this every year, but this is one of those movies that you mention and they scratch their heads, they're like, what, which one is that? and you mention like, oh, it's the one versus the animals in the neighborhood, and then everybody's like, over the hedge? No. Like this is a live action one.
Understandable why you would think that. It's got someone from George of the Jungle in it. It's exactly what I just described.
Your main protagonist is a wily raccoon that needs to learn that he needs to be able to get along with humans and in the world in order to be happy.
And imagine if Cop Out never happened, Bruce Willis might have voiced the raccoon in Furry Vengeance.
Yeah, there it is. That's the reason. Yeah. Cop Out and him just kind of going full off the deep end grumpy is the only reason why Furry Vengeance didn't succeed as a film.
I mean, that's causality, man. It's not necessarily true. But yeah, it's what I think. I mean, because the second I'm like, oh my God, is the raccoon going to talk? Oh my God, is the raccoon going to be Bruce Willis? And then I was wrong on both of those because
it doesn't want to go there. It doesn't want to go. Yeah, it just doesn't want to go that far. It never wants to go that far. And that's a shame, because I think that would have been one of the few things that could have saved this movie in any sense. I don't think it would have still been a financial success. I don't think it would have been a critical darling. But like there's literally no reason to really go back and see this movie other than what we're doing today, because like there is no hook. There's no quirky wackiness to it worth hanging your hat on. The wackiness that's there is just so weird that it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. It doesn't reference anything. It doesn't get referenced by anything. It just kind of exists. Like this movie is just going to go down in history as just there.
Which is strange, because the other thought that kept percolating in my mind as I watched this film, especially when you consider that a large amount of the production is footed by foreign investors, is how similar it feels to something like Sinbad Beyond the Veil of Mists.
Yeah.
In terms of, we have these ideas that we want to try. We want to be a little bit experimental, because it really is. It's something to see how realistic some of these animals look for being completely computer generated. The fox will haunt my fucking nightmares because its proportions are off. Its rear limbs are shorter than its front limbs. Like they just messed up in programming the animal. Like
the ways in which they are able to do realistic, I'm putting quotes around that, please, anybody, realistic animals, but then also give them quirky character traits so that you kind of recognize one from the other. So I'm thinking of the one-eyed weasel, ha 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 ha. Like, but the one-eyed
you mean Pauly Shore, if this were voiced?
Right, but the one that drives the truck at the end, right? Like that character is a character in this movie that I can point to.
Oh no, that's not. I think Pauly Shore would be the white ferret. Not the one-eyed weasel.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. The white ferret.
The white ferret. I got those two confused. I thought it was an otter who was driving the truck at the end, not a weasel. But he's a one-eyed otter.
But see, my brain wrote a better joke than the movie did. That.
Yes, of course it did. Well, and then we cast it better because there's your Pauly Shore reference. Because Link shows up in this movie. You can call him Tuca as much as you want, but we all know that it's Link from Encino. Like it's. And that's what happened, is that the animals froze him, so then he woke up and helped Sean Astin and Pauly Shore become cool. There's your movie right there. I don't know. It's one worse thing, but it feels like it was experimental technology, and a lot of it. Like the raccoon, the fact that they were like, we're going to use a lot of puppets, and then they ended up not using a lot of puppets, and instead use CGI, and the CGI looks pretty convincing.
Yeah, there definitely was some real raccoon moments where then they add CGI to overlay it and stuff. But still, I mean, like to your point, like it is pretty decent stuff there, but it's just not enough. You know, we talked about Sinbad and we talked about how we had a lot of similar feelings in terms of the production, like the end product, right? Mm-hmm. But the benefit to it was that they really were pushing the envelope, and there was a lot of care to that, to the point where they developed an entire new style of filmmaking with that movie, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, credit where credit's due. This movie doesn't get that. This movie doesn't have anything. It's not doing anything so insanely like buck wild that we're just like, oh man, like this needs to be the cornerstone of this entire style of film. It just doesn't happen. This movie just doesn't get there.
No. But I can also understand that like 10-year gap between them, that may be being a way that you sell Brendan Fraser to be in this film. And to be an executive producer on this film is we kind of want to do what you did with Sinbad like 10 years ago. We kind of want to try that with CGI, where like the animals are the main character, they're the main protagonist, but we're going to treat them just like animals. And you're going to be there to be like our hook and to bring people in to see what we can do with this technology.
I mean, we'd be remiss to not also acknowledge the darker side of what might be going on here, is that this is also a point in Fraser's career after like the incident, right?
Yeah.
Where he's kind of like tried to step away from certain people in Hollywood because of the ways in which he was treated and his body was treated and things like that. And like so the other side of this is also just like, you know, a guy just happy to be working, and that's easy to say, but I don't think that's fair, because I think first of all he's putting in more work than he needs to, if that's the only case. And on top of that, as you mentioned, like the executive producer stuff, the idea that there's this hope that like the slapstickiness nature and combined with doing some pretty advanced CGI work will equate to worth it. It just doesn't in the end, as far as I'm concerned.
But I don't think that this is one of those films where sometimes you look at a movie and you're like, tax shelter, see John Carter of Mars. But this
or
film,
vacation film, like The Tourist, or like any Adam Sandler movie where he's not in America. Yeah.
But this does not feel like that. This feels like legitimately we went in to make this film and then we realized, oh, this is not going to work the way that we wanted to without the plucky talking animal characters. It's not there. I just look like a monster this whole friggin' movie. The way that I treat people. I don't know. It's but we got to talk about it, right? And I'm glad that we waited as long as we did to discuss it, because it's all about laying down that foundation and having that deeper foundation and respect for what Brendan Fraser does allowed me to watch this movie and not just be repulsed by it, but to like see, oh, Toby Huss, well, they've worked together a bunch of times. Oh, this does kind of have a bedazzled sort of vibe to it. I wouldn't be surprised. In fact, I've got the thought into my head a lot recently. This is what has been unlocked as I've just been like hanging out and thinking about the world, about editing movies together. You know, I've been playing a lot of Zelda Super Metroid Cross Randomizer again, and I'm like, what if we could do that with movies? I really want to see Mamma Mia edited into chronological order the way that they did the Godfather epic in the 70s.
Nice.
I think that would be great to watch that
Mamma
all
Mia,
happen.
Mamma Mia 2?
I want it all combined in chronological order so that you just take it all in as one story, the way that it happened. But then I also wouldn't mind seeing Furry Vengeance edited into friggin' Bedazzled.
Yeah, right. As just one of the
wishes.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun, and I think it would work really well, especially if I could somehow have Brooke Shields pull off her face to reveal that she's Elizabeth Hurley the whole time.
Oh man, I look. I've been having a very Brooke Shields kind of year, because I believe I might be that she was also in the Christmas movie that I fell in love with Carrie Elwes last year, A Castle for Christmas, I think is the name of it, or something like that. And she plays like a J.K. Rowling like XB. And so like I appreciate the work she did in this movie. Clearly having fun with the makeup and all that crap. Like I just like there's just I could not help but every time somebody showed up in this movie that I could name, that I could recognize, and I was like, but why though? Why? Like I love that you're here, but why are you here every time?
Yeah, and you have to imagine part of it's Brendan Fraser, right? Part of it is like to work with Brendan Fraser. I don't know. I mean, Ken Jeong's huge. He's just coming off The Hangover and what he's been doing in Community. It feels that way. And I have to admit, before we move on, this is sort of going to be my final thought on Furry Vengeance before we talk about some other things, is I thought Brooke Shields in the very, very first scene, and only in the first scene, was Rachel Weisz. And I'm just like, can you fucking imagine? We couldn't get her for Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, but we got her for Furry Vengeance.
This movie would be a whole different movie. We'd be having a different conversation. People would it would be a cult hit only because of the presence and the reuniting of the two of them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be a completely.
I'm just like, it can't be that. And then I'm like, oh, good, it's not that. I'm just a crazy person. And then good for Brooke Shields coming in and just committing. Because she's committed too. Like, it's good. It's really good stuff.
I don't think anybody in this movie half-asses their part in it. All the way down to just, like, the smaller roles, like we mentioned earlier, Patrice O'Neal and Jim Norton and stuff like that. Like, everybody there, like, lands. It just... Why? I don't know.
And I think we know why Dick Van Dyke decided not to show up in this movie. But who knows what would have happened if he had. All right. So that's my thoughts on Furry Vengeance. Anything you'd like to add? Because other stuff happened over the week, and I'd like to address
I want to
it.
stop talking about Furry Vengeance. Let's talk about this.
All right. Well, Brendan, thank you for this one. And to honor your wishes, this should hopefully be the last time we talk about it.
I have a jar going. Every time I mention Furry Vengeance from here on out, I'm going to put a quarter in the jar.
I love that. I think we should both do that. Everybody get a Furry Vengeance jar and put a quarter in it whenever you reference it. And then donate that money to... I guess like a Save the Animals foundation
that
at the end of every...
That would make most sense, probably, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know one off the top of my head that I would, like, endorse right here. So, give it to the wild turkeys. Because I'm an asshole. Sorry. All right. So, other things. Siegen, I have to tell you something. Okay. And I was, like, real come to Jesus moment, apologetic about the whole Kids in the Hall thing last week. Mm-hmm. And I take it all back. Yeah. Because the fact that we were able to do our Kids in the Hall episode hopefully highlighted and reminded some people that it was happening. And it wasn't the first weekend that Amazon gave a damn about in terms of, are we going to give these guys another season, a 7th season to do this type of comedy. It was actually this past weekend where I don't know what your Twitter was like, but my Twitter was nothing but the kids and Paul Bellini like telling people go watch the series again. And then like anyone in stand-up comedy that I've like ever interacted with, similar tweets. So I know that we already did the episode, we already signaled it, but I can't help but feel like one of the reasons this weekend matters to Amazon is because it's Victoria Day weekend in Canada. So it's their Memorial Day. So this is releasing on Victoria Day. It's releasing on May 23rd. So if you haven't watched Kids in the Hall and you have any sort of interest in it and you have Amazon Prime, now's the day to watch the full season to ensure that we can get a 7th season. Because the more I think about what they did with this 6th season of Kids in the Hall, the happier I am at the fact that like that type of comedy gets to exist in the world still.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Sorry,
I have been very thoroughly enjoying it. I've enjoyed going back and even found myself putting Brain Candy on for the second time this week. Just had it out of the background because I was running through some old stuff. So like, yeah, we already kind of beat this drum, but go check out Kids in the Hall if you haven't already, because the new season is just something else.
It's really good. I mean, that sketch where Kevin McDonald has Dave Foley in a Kevin McDonald sketch, unbeknownst to him, that worked for me on all the levels. Every possible level. It's good. It's good stuff. But we did. We already beat this drum, but I just wanted to say I'm still a little bit sorry for forcing a Sega tape into your Super Nintendo last week, everybody. But there might have been some benefit to it. Mode 7 on Sonic the Hedgehog. That's what I'm going to talk about. Is there anything you want to talk about, Siege? We got time. We're not like wrapping this one up. So if you got like a topic you want to address, maybe related to Furry Vengeance in some small way.
No.
No? Oh, so you didn't get to watch Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers?
Oh, no, I have not yet watched it. The family is going to watch it today, actually. We've just... It is an event movie for us.
Oh, and
so
I agree.
We have not had... It's killing us, because what we were going to do is we were going to also go out and see Bob's Burgers at some point this week, and that also didn't happen. So, like, there's a whole...
Well, Bob's Burgers doesn't come out till next week, so you didn't really miss anything there.
It came out on the 16th in limited release in one of the limited areas of Salt Lake City.
What the fuck? That's crazy.
It's part of the reason why we were going to get out and go and see it was that I was going to get to brag about seeing it before anybody else, and it didn't happen. So like it was a bit of a bummer. But yeah, so we didn't get to do that. We didn't get to do Rescue Rangers yet. There's just been we've been kind of like crazy busy in terms of just it's summertime. So like we're getting into the summer mode. So there's just been a whole bunch of house stuff. Like it's one of the joys of renting a full on house is that you have to do all the things that an owner would do in terms of like setting it all up, but then like you have to go through a third person every step of the way because every time we set up like the cooler guy is going to come and make sure that the swap cooler's on so that we don't die in the 90-degree weather again. Also, now we need to wait 3 days for our landlord to get back to us to tell us whether or not they approve of the time that this person's going to come and all this shit. So it's just been a lot of that sort of stuff. Add to that, like we decided to give a go at doing some really adult stuff, and we hired a cleaner to come and clean the house. Like, bow chicka bow wow. Like, we just wanted to try it just to see if like we could maybe benefit from not having to worry about it ourselves at least this one time.
You mean like a housekeeper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like we hired somebody. Well,
I hear cleaner. I think that Cedric the Entertainer showed up and was cleaning up dead bodies as you're doing bow chicka bow wow.
Well,
you're throwing me off with your lyrics.
Well, and it is. They were definitely cleaners, not like keepers, because like they just came to just like wash the floorboards type stuff.
Gotcha.
So there was also just like a whole new element of that because I've never done that in my life, and like trying to work while knowing that there's like two strangers like wandering around upstairs like vacuuming like elves in the night like was a little weird. So I've been a little preoccupied. But in my in-between time, I have been diving into just some video gamey stuff. And I've completely replayed through all of the SteamWorld games in the last couple of weeks. I think I've gushed about it before. Like SteamWorld Dig and SteamWorld Dig 2 are some of my favorite games. SteamWorld Heist might be in my top 10 games of all time. I could play that game at any point of the day. Like I could play like Mario or Pac-Man. I could play SteamWorld Heist. SteamWorld, I can't even think of the name of it. The deck building one that is it was the first one I played because it's not my favorite. But SteamWorld Quest is an RPG that has like a deck building element to it, and I really like the mechanics in that. The problem with that one is that it just hasn't hooked me as fast as the other two did, and therefore I've never finished it. I did finally, but I had never finished it before now because it just never held my attention as well as like Heist did or the Dig games did or anything like that. So I made sure to play Quest first because I was like, I'm not going to play through 3 other Steam games and then start Quest and not finish it because that's what's going to happen. So I played through that, finally got through it, and I'm finally kind of like on board to do the whole like replay it again and do it better this time because that's one of the best things about their games is that even the Dig series, which is just basically just fucking Dig Dug, but there isn't a tactical element to that game where like there's a way to play that game and finish it in under 2 hours and like get to the bottom and just get it done. Like, and I want to give that a shot as a guy that's not usually a huge trophy guy. The Dig games, I mean. So anyway, so I've played those games 1,000 times because there is just so many different ways you can play it, tactics you can try, blah blah blah. I'd never felt that way with Quest, and I finally do. So I'm going to go back on that. But that's been kind of my week is like getting the house together, and then when I can, like sneaking in some single player stuff. Like usually, like when I wake up in the morning before I have to go to work, I get a couple of hours in of playing a SteamWorld game, maybe even while I'm at work, depending on how slow the damn day is.
Cool. I mean, me, I wanted to make sure that I had everything Furry Vengeance sort of connected done in my life that I was working. So I did do Chip and Dale, but I guess we won't be talking about that probably for 2 weeks. We'll give people a chance to watch it. It'll be something we cover in our first non-Brendan Fraser episode, which I'm definitely excited about. I've enjoyed this month of Brendan Fraser history immensely. I've really enjoyed some of the stuff we've gotten to dive into, and I've really, like Furry Vengeance ending with him as a ranger felt a lot like Dudley Do-Right. And I'm like, wow, we sort of stumbled into a little theme here, didn't we? Maybe this is just the Kids in the Hall sketch, this movie. The other thing I did was I said started Donut County, and that is about raccoons, right?
Yeah.
So, and then yesterday I'm just like, I need to just be done with it. I need to just finish Donut County. So I sat down yesterday afternoon and just plowed through the rest of the game. And it turns out I was really close to the end. I had been doing a level a day, and then I just got distracted. So I'm like, I'm just gonna power through it.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever played Donut County not in one sitting. Like, I bought it on a whim one day and was planning on playing video games all day, so I was able to get through it that once because it was only a few hours. And then once I had played it that way, I could never not, right? So every time I show it to somebody, I'm like, look, we need to put aside 4 hours to just chill out, like, and then just listen to this chill music and play with holes. And like, it inevitably, I don't think I've ever played through that game and not just gotten to the end. So it's interesting to me that you've been pausing between.
Well, I enjoyed it. Like, I'm like, I don't want to do it like a little thing. I was doing it on my lunch break. I'm like, I'll do a level on my lunch break every day, and that way, I don't. And I want to do it, and I was enjoying it, so I did it that way. But then yesterday, I'm like, I just need to be done with it. Especially, what if there's a reference to Furry Vengeance in Donut County that I'm not thinking of?
That game is really buck wild because while it definitely maintains its like chill Katamari style, like just roll around and just relax type vibe to it, the ways in which it builds in like a boss battle at the end and stuff like that is really interesting. And like the weird little quirky elements of like, if you get a hole full of water, then you can put out fires, which will create smoke, which will make this happen. Like that kind of puzzle element. It's really surprising how much of a mechanic they make out of just go around and swallow shit.
Yeah. And I was really happy I beat the quadcopter or the royal quadcopter, whatever it's freaking called, in my first try. Because It was like real dicey at the end. I kept missing in the final form. And I'm like, I don't want to lose here. I really just want to beat this on my first try. So then being victorious, it was an exciting experience. And another, I felt like I used my Game Pass for the month. And that's always good, right? As long as I beat one game, I feel like I'm getting something out of Game Pass. As we find out that the Series S was the best-selling console in Japan for the last quarter.
Yeah, that's because PlayStation can't make them fast enough. Like, I do want to give it its due. The idea that the Xbox has finally been able to break into an Asian market, no less Japan, right, is huge. That's huge news, and I don't want to like act like I'm putting my nose up at that idea. But a huge factor in a lot of this has just been, I cannot believe how much PlayStation has stumbled on the manufacturing side. And I know there's like things like, oh, there was COVID and there was other, but God, it is unfathomable to me that we are 4 years into that console.
Two.
Yep. was when it is. But
2020 it came out.
But the idea that it's still not. No, it came out Christmas of 2019 at least.
2020.
Well, the idea that I'm still hearing about people being like 600 on a list to get one.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Maybe it was 2019. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have one here. Let me see if there's like stuff on the back for when it came out.
November of 2020.
Yeah, it's 2020. That's what I just got to. It hasn't had that 2 years, but they are unable to produce them. And every time I see something like these are supposed to be hard to get, it's like, they are though. They are difficult to get. The fact that I've been able to get 3, and one of them was for a third party. Like, we have 2 in the house, one that belongs to me, one that belongs to my sister. And then when I had the opportunity to get a third, and I'm like, do I have anybody who would want this? Like, yeah. And that's the thing. And I've been trying to get one for you, and to no avail as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, there's none in stores around us, and if you order through Sony, which is what everybody says is just the best way to do it, we're being told it's a 6-month waiting period out here. Yeah. So like, I just don't have it in me to spend $500, $600 on a console and not see it until next year. That's just not going to work for me.
It's also, it doesn't really have any killer apps yet. It doesn't have the PlayStation 5 exclusive game, which is really the craziest thing about it. And it's because Sony has had to adapt to the fact that they don't have the systems, and they don't want to alienate those people who have PS4s.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I was going to say there's been some PS exclusives, but the fact that they've had to also be PS4 and PS5, they have not gone full on like, nope, sorry, you got to get the 5 to play this one, and had it work, I should say.
Right, that's true. Because I think like Returnal might be that. I don't think Returnal has a PS4 version, but that game, as great as that game is not is not a system seller the way that if God of War Ragnarok were only on PS5, that would be like people would be mad that they can't get PS5s. That's just a fact.
Right, right.
I don't know. It's and I think it affected things like Horizon Zero Dawn 2, the Forbidden West game. Like I don't it's strange. But then to actually see that the S penetrated the market in an Asian country, no less Japan, like is not surprising because that's what it was designed to do. It was designed to be sort of like the Switch where I want to play newer games, but I don't want to spend $500.
Yeah.
So it falling into the whole, well, I don't want to spend $500. So that's like why the X isn't the one that took over and sold hyper well. What took over was, I want to play Elden Ring, but I don't have the system to play Elden Ring on. Though I think you can play that on PS4. I don't know what the experience is like. Have you haven't dove into that one, have you?
Elden Ring?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Least I've played it on a PS4, but I have not personally bought it, so I have no real investment in it. And it was the only time I touched it though was on the PS4.
How was it on the PS4?
Janky. I mean, there's a lot going on screen. I like, and that's not fair. Like it ran smoother than most things, but I mean, like nowadays, anything I play on my PS4 feels like I'm seeing stuttering and all sorts of weird shit and pop in of like textures and things like that. Like 10 minutes after I've been in the game. Like I say this because you gotta understand, I've been spending a lot of time lately playing Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is like the Borderlands games are pretty infamous for that kind of shit. With especially once you get into those higher tier chaos areas where like there's 10 times more villains on screen than even the game really is prepared for, never mind your console. Yeah, so just there, I feel like I've been seeing that more and more over the last year is just stuff is just jank. Actually, I mean, like a better example is I was just playing Tony Hawk 1-2 the other day, the re-release that they did that was super well done. And even in that, as beautiful as that was on the PS4, and that game came out a year ago or more at this point, like even that has some really serious kind of issues that I was just like, yeah, this is it's time for a new console. But I just can't. Like I said, I can't bring myself to spend that much money on a PS5 right now and not see it for so long. It just doesn't, as much as video games are an art and I want to be at the cutting edge of it and all that shit, I also play video games for immediate satisfaction. And so I'm not going to spend this much money and not see the console for 6 months. I'm just not going to.
No, I would not feel comfortable spending that money for something I'm not going to see in 6 months. Something that I finally did. Kickstarter has existed for, let's say, 8 years, right? No, it's been 10 years because it was 2012 where I was considering doing my Kickstarter, White House Brown, the retelling of the time Al Roker shit his pants at the White House.
Was that going to be a dramatic retelling?
Oh, it was going to be high art. I was very excited to like do like an Oliver Stone-esque film about when Al Roker shit his pants at the White House. I had grand designs, but I never went live with it because like I was like, this is stupid. Like it was one of those like, this is the most brilliant idea I've ever had, and then I'm like, I can't ask people for money for this.
And then 10 years out, you saw what Kickstarter became, and all you could think was, fuck, I should have just done it.
I should have just done it, right? I mean, that guy made potato salad in 2012. Remember, I would need $10 to make potato salad, and he made like $14 million. Probably more. So, I mean, Kickstarter was having a moment. Let's just be honest about it. But yeah, so I finally supported a Kickstarter for the first time ever. Up to this point, I've only ever used Indiegogo. And then, like, with people that I knew, or I was, like, working on the project. So, like, yeah, I'll give you $100 because I'm working on this project and I want to make sure that it gets done, right? Playing to play, as it really were. No, but it was a good time. I got to meet Olympia Dukakis because of it. So I'll take that any day of the week. What are we talking about? Yeah, so I did a Kickstarter, and I'm like so annoyed at Kickstarter. Like, I'm never going to do another Kickstarter. Is the end of this discussion. Feels like,
you know how they say, like, the 2 days that you are the happiest days of a man's life are the day he buys a boat and the day he sells it?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that is, like, becoming the Kickstarter, like, ethos of just, like the two things you always hear about Kickstarter is I'm super excited to back this project that would never gotten made otherwise, and boy, do I fucking hate Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's well the fact of the matter is what I backed the plunderlings. They're these little like gremlin looking figures that are beautiful. Like they have actual paint apps and they have really good articulation. They did a taller version called a plunder long and a beefy version called a plunder strong. So I backed this Kickstarter and the pricing for the figures were like really affordable if you backed the Kickstarter. And then before the Kickstarter, and I hadn't given any money yet, I hadn't committed any money at this point, before the Kickstarter ended, but they had made their goal to say, we're going to be, like, this is going to happen. We're going to make these figures. They started showing up at, like, the online toy retailers, like Entertainment Earth or Big Bad Toy Store, for sale. And the prices were almost double if you weren't part of the Kickstarter campaign, which feels like marketing or whatever. But I'm like, well, there are ones that I want, so I'm going to commit to it. But then ever since, it's been fill out this survey. You haven't filled out that survey. Thank you for that survey. Please make sure to recheck your survey to make sure that your answers are correct.
So is it them trying to like remind you, hey, you put money into this thing, keep an eye on it, or does it feel like now they're taking advantage of the fact that you joined their system and they're just abusing your information?
I wish that it's only been a month, right? Like the backing ended on the 28th of April, so it hasn't even been a month at the time that I'm finally talking about it on the show, and it's just like it just feels like they're taking advantage of the fact that like I'm in their ethos, because it's not like one of those things where like you back a video game and because of the amount you did, like you get to contribute, you get to name a character or something stupid like that. It's literally, I basically went in on a mass pre-order, and because I was part of that mass pre-order, I get to choose what I want and I get access to like other little baubles. But the whole thing, like I'll never do it again, because it really just makes me realize just how insidious this type of thing is. Like they were probably going to do it whether or not they got the Kickstarter or not. It just it's really opened my eyes up to it, and I've always been shy about doing something like Kickstarter because of I pre-ordered the 88 Mile Per Hour Studios, which that's a name, right? That I do even know what that is, what 88 Miles Per Hour Studio is.
I mean, it feels like it's something that is heavily invested in Back to the Future. Is it just what
So it's kind of the IDW of 2005 is what I would call it. And I think IDW might have existed, but what they intended to do and what the guy did, Sebastian was his name, is he got the rights to do comics based on a bunch of old 80s properties. And his big one was Ghostbusters. And I don't remember what he called it. Ghostbusters, maybe Afterlife, but I don't think that's what it was called.
Might be a little biased towards that title at the moment.
But it was something like that. And what it basically did was it took the story of Ghostbusters and set it in the 2000s, which was really interesting. And it was after the events of the first movie. So, like, Louis Tully was able to spin everything that happened to become an internet celebrity. Like, so everybody knew him that way. Mm-hmm. But then there was a bunch of, like, other oversight because things are more prone to oversight in the 2000s than they were in the 80s. And also, you got to think about the fact that, like, we're in a post 9/11 society where they're doing this. And either way, they did 4 issues of it, and it was an enjoyable thing. And then I'm like, but I don't want to read these issues. Like, I want to keep them bagged and boarded because it was in my, like, comic collecting phase, right?
Yeah.
So when I saw they put up a pre-order for a trade paperback, and it was $100, but you also got a shit ton of extras, right?
Right.
So I asked for it as a Christmas gift, and my mother did it, and then that never came. Like, it just never came. And that guy kind of just ran off with everybody's money. From that pre-order. And you can go and you can read about it if you look up 88 Miles Per Hour Ghostbusters trade paperback. Like, there are articles and huge things about what that guy did and how there are some people who are still, like, waiting for the day to come where they get their comic books.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing is that there is not some system in place And I guess there's a reason for this. There's like finance laws that don't allow this, but the idea that you would put your money towards this product, but it would need to go into like a
Like escrow.
escrow of some
Yeah.
kind. It would need to be watched by some third party so that they could keep an eye on it to make sure the money was being spent where it was supposed to be spent. Because too often you hear these stories. The one I think of is the flexible phone from 4 or 5 years ago that a bunch of people bought in on and like made like 50 grand, and then the guy disappeared. And it actually was such a huge blow up for Kickstarter. They actually had to change a lot of their policies in terms of what you could actually put on Kickstarter, because at the time what this particular incident was with this flex phone was all of the material that was provided, again quotes in the air, for people to see were all like CGI renderings and like fake like mock-ups and things like that. So there was never anything that indicated that an actual product had been made, and Kickstarter had to start kind of drawing the line at like you need to show proof of concept a little bit more than this. And it changed a bunch of laws for Kickstarter. But yeah, the flexible phone that people just gave hand over fist to, and then the guy or the people behind creating it just disappeared with thousands of dollars. And sometimes you hear these stories where like there is one person that really is trying to get this thing done, and so they want it, and then what they do is they get swindled because somebody comes in and says, hey, we're going to help you finance this thing, but what we're going to do is I'm going to put $10,000 down, but you need to promise me that we're going to go to Kickstarter with it, get this money, I'll keep an eye on the money for us, and then we can go. And so $10,000 shows up for somebody that actually has a real idea. They get their shit on Kickstarter, they get this thing up there, they make $100,000, then suddenly all the money is gone. And what it is that first person never intended to help. They were just there to get the money and go. And the problem is that in the Kickstarter language and like in all of this stuff, there is always this constant idea that like, look, we're not promising you a finished product. And they can't get away from that, because that's the whole idea of Kickstarter, is they can't promise you a finished product unless they meet these goals and get this. And so it's weird because it is a flaw. It is the biggest flaw of Kickstarter is built into its DNA. So it can't ever change it. It can't ever truly fix it. And so I don't think there's any way that Kickstarter is ever going to change in that regard of what you're talking about, of putting all of this money in and then people just running off with cash that's just part of what you play. It's gambling at some point. And I don't mean that as like, so suck it up, you fell for it. I mean, it shouldn't be allowed. Like, plain and simple, Kickstarter should die on the vine. This should not have succeeded for as long as it has.
Well, I mean, I wish that Kickstarter had been what I did that pre-order with. I just did it with that guy's company,
Yeah.
and because it felt like a legitimate company, we had seen things produced by him at the time.
Right.
To accompany the announcement for the trade paperback, they did reprints of those first 4 issues, like with unique cover art. So like by all accounts, it seemed like this is a well-working machine. Mm-hmm. And then what really happened was I think the Ghostbuster rights were a part of the issue too, that like Sony saw, oh my God, these are being lucrative again. Let's get them back and make sure that we're on top of this.
The hammer down.
Because like the Shali Fisk book, Ghostbusters Urban Legend, like that was a book that was fully licensed. They had all the right to write it, and then it was, after its first printing, was stopped from doing any subsequent printings because of licensing issues.
Yeah, well, and that's fair. That's a reason why the product doesn't get made. But then you should have gotten your money back.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just not what happened.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So I've been weary of things like Kickstarter, and even all that stuff you talked about with Kickstarter. That doesn't stop things from like Indiegogo, where all you have are CGI. And usually for technical stuff, and they're like, understand that a commitment.
And that's why those places blow up, is because Kickstarter suddenly says like, hey, we need to behave ourselves a little bit more. So then you get these other sites that promise to not monitor as much as that does, but that means you're taking a bigger risk.
It's a huge risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. But then this one, I'm like, I want to make sure I get these figures, because there were other figures that in this line that I wanted, and then like I'm like, I'll just wait to order them, and now they're sold out. And I'm like, so I'll just get in at the ground floor. There's some exclusives for doing Kickstarter, and I'm saving like 50% the cost of a figure by doing this. But man, it is an annoyance that I was not expecting. And like, to top it all off, I'm not going to see product until January of next year.
Yeah.
So it's like, I made this commitment in that. And it's also like limited run games. I'm about to curb any sort of purchasing from that, because it's the same sort of bullshit right there. Like, where I paid for a physical copy of Shantae and the Half Genie Hero that Limited Run Games is doing. I did that last year, probably in April, and I just got an email being like, "Oh, we're just checking in. Want to make sure that your mailing address is still the same." And I'm like, "What is this even for?" Oh, that thing I bought a year ago.
Yeah.
Like I need to move away from that. I need to stop collecting video games. And I don't know how that's what this conversation turned into, but it's just like a fact.
Devin's come to Jesus moment.
I
Yeah,
mean,
man. I
yeah,
like,
it's
I am a huge believer in a great example of this in my life is movies, physical copies of movies now. There was a time in my life where I was the guy that had, 300 DVDs and Blu-rays. I needed just 4 bookshelves just for my movies alone. And I loved that life and I love that life. But, you move around a lot. You end up in situations where you need some cash. I sold off a ton of my stuff. And I've now pared it down to, maybe I own like 60 like DVDs in total. But what it is I won't buy one physically nowadays, a movie physically nowadays. I mean, I've got streaming, I've got digital versions, all that stuff that I can use. If I really want to watch a movie at any moment, I pretty much can, right? But if I want a physical copy of something, if I see a physical copy of something and it's worth it, then I will go for it. But my rules have to be pretty basic for that. It can't be ethereal. It can't be this promise of a physical copy. Like, if we get enough money, we'll put this physical version of this out to buy it. I just won't do that. But if Amazon has it up and it's a new release, I'll buy it. Or if I see it in a store, I'll buy it. But I have to limit myself in some way because I can't, on so many levels. I can't be spending money on stuff that I might never see. I can't be spending money I can't be spending all of my money on this stuff to begin with. And then on top of all of that, I just don't need that much shit in my life anymore. like I want to support these things and I want to be behind these artists and I want to support the art I love and I like to surround myself with the art I love. It's what makes me happy. But you got to put limits on it, man, because at some point you find yourself in these situations where you're just like, I don't even remember ordering half of this stuff. What's going on? And that's not cool.
Yeah. And it was just a lot of retail therapy during like lockdown. Mm-hmm. And then like it's relearning how to break those cycles. And then also what did it for me, this happened, I think like Easter I did this, and I've been looking for a time to talk about it. And I'm sorry that like this is what Furry Vengeance brought this out of us, and I apologize to any of the listeners. I promise you're going to get the 4th part of the Brendan Fraser quiz of Brendan Fraser after this. So look forward to that. If this is like this doom and gloom about retail isn't really your bag, I do apologize.
The futility of man. Spend this entire episode.
Yeah, really. Like the raccoon should just take over. But I went to a comic shop Easter weekend. Mm-hmm. And it was more of a collectible shop than a comic shop, which is what they all kind of have become. Yeah. But all of these things that like I only see online, and it feels like they're not even real, because if you go to the retail stores where they're also supposed to be available, you cannot find them. Right. Like, it's all on the shelves at this comic store. So I'm like, this is awesome. I can't believe that this is a thing that's happening, that I finally get to see this. But then I pick up an item, and it's not a small item. It's one of the, like, 1/4-inch scale Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from the movie, right? Because I have the Raphael, and I wouldn't mind having the rest of the Turtles. And then online, they're going for, like, $300. So I'm like, oh, I wonder how much it is in this store. I pick it up. I check every surface. There's no price tag on it.
Ooh, market value, my friend.
Ooh, that's
some market fresh turtle.
That's right not great.
Yeah, yep.
So I'm like, but maybe they're big and maybe they don't want to ruin the packaging because most people aren't going to do it. I understand that. So like certainly something that I can go into Target right now and spend $20 on, like that'll have like a price tag on it. And even then I was expecting it to maybe be $25 for the convenience of being able to buy it, right? For knowing that I have it here. And I go over to the He-Man Masters of the Masterverse collection stuff. None of that has tags. So then I go through and then I realize everything in the shop is essentially market value. And I was so pissed off, Sejan. I was so upset because if I go up there with like this figure, right, and knowing that, you know, they're supposed to be, their retail cost was like $150, those big turtles, right?
Yeah.
And I go up there and that guy asked me for like $300. Like I would like laugh in his face at that. Like I'd be like, go fuck yourself. Yeah. And even then, like, maybe 200 would be the highest, but I've walked into a store that has a thing that is supposed to be available other places. I would expect to maybe pay the cost, the MSRP on it, maybe like a 5-10 markup because you obviously had to do something to get it here.
Right.
But like that's me. That's someone who understands that. But like if a grandmother goes in there and is like, "Oh, my grandson wants this figure," they're going to take advantage of her, not knowing costs.
Yeah, no, I mean it muddies the waters and all of that stuff, and it's gross. It's just gross.
I mean, when it's like storefront scalping like that, because that's what it feels like. That's all it feels like to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is we can scalp right here at the shop, and it's just like, oh, I don't want to support that. But one of the things that it did bring into my eyes is Super 7. They did those little reaction figures. They've now got into ultimate figures, and there are a lot of 80s like properties, right? And then I don't want it to be another Sebastian situation with Ghostbusters, but you know, I've only ever seen them online. And online, you see them go for like hundreds of dollars. And I don't know why they go for hundreds of dollars. Like, I understand why the Voltron figure does, because it's big, right? But essentially, it's like, so, but the MSRP on them is about $50. But then even the website, that if you buy it direct from the website with shipping and handling, and it's that fucking word handling that gives me pause, a $50 figure goes up to $80.
Right.
And it's just like, I fucking hate this. What am I doing here? What is the point of it? But to see them in person, I'm like, I'm going to try it. So I scoped out Amazon until I could find them at like a good price. And that's like $10 less than MSRP. I bought a Raphael for $39, and that's all I paid for him. Because Ninja Turtles are like their big one that got them started. And then, like I said, they have Voltron. But what they're going to do is Silverhawks. And Silverhawks is one of my favorite properties that I just never talk about. Because I learned at a young age, nobody watches Silverhawks or nobody watched Silverhawks. But to see that like they're going to do like these really good figures of them. Like I kind of want to get a Buzzsaw figure. Because Buzzsaw was the only one of the original toy line I was unable to get. Eventually, someone gave it to me as a gift for helping them move, which was kind of the coolest thing that's ever happened. I'm not going to lie. But yes, so I wanted to look into them, but I wanted to see the quality, right? Because you see $50 for a figure, and it's like, well, is it good, or is that just like licensing? Is that because Viacom is like, we want half of everything you sell on these figures, right? So we'll sell them for $50, so that we're still getting back our profit.
Get your ducats, man.
Yeah, it's, you know. So I got one, and I gotta say, these Super 7 Ultimate Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I've since bought the 4 brothers and have a lovely display of them. May is gonna be my last month, though, for collectible stuff. Okay. As Thor stares at me, and because I got all the Thor figures from the movie, that impressed somebody. They're like, where'd you get these? The movie's not even out yet. And I'm like, yeah, but it was supposed to be out. And Hasbro don't give a fuck. Hasbro's like, yeah, we were going to sell them in April, so we're going to sell these in April.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a real, like, coming to realization in terms with that. That, like, as much fun as, and as much as it's an affordable thing to collect, like toys, that I just don't want to spend that money anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be involved in that community anymore.
Yeah, man, I fully support you breaking your addiction. Let me put it that way.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Siege. It'd be real weird if you're like, no, continue to consume. And then I put on my Ray-Ban sunglasses and, oh my God, he lives.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, that's been the gist of my week, though, and then Furry Vengeance, you know?
Yep, that's it. I don't know, Furry Vengeance and those things, and yeah, I can't think of anything else. I watched Biodome because that's back on Prime, so we'll probably talk about that at some point. but not this week. I think this week we've said all the things. I got kind of down, right? Furry Vengeance made me realize the futility of man.
It's okay. We have a part to throw to.
Yes, we do have a part to throw to that will hopefully raise spirits and everybody can be excited. Before we do that, just a reminder, the final movie that we are celebrating Brendan Fraser History Month with, 2022, is Escape from Planet Earth. Another animated film. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a fun month. It's a fun
Another
month.
one
I
that
like
people
what we
scratch their
chose.
heads about when you mention that movie, and people are like, "Wait, is that the one where they capture all the moms?" Nope.
Nope, that's Mars Needs Moms.
No, no, and that's not the one with the kids. That's Jumanji in space. Nope,
No,
that's
that's Zathura.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Escape from Planet Earth is definitely another one that nobody out there seems to remember or recognize.
is it the one
So
with
I'd say-
Patrick Warburton where he goes to an alien planet? No, that's Planet 51.
Ah, damn it, damn it, damn it. This is the one with the monkeys, right? This is the one with the monkeys.
No, that's Space Monkeys. Oh, Space Chimps. I'm sorry. God, remember that movie?
No.
Remember this?
That one
Remember
had a sequel.
Fly Me to the Moon?
Oh man.
Where the
Yeah,
flies
with
went
Buzz
to space?
Aldrin, right? Yeah.
Yeah, with Buzz Aldrin. Oh man, there were a lot of them, right? So Escape from Planet Earth, that's if you want to do your Brendan Fraser homework, that's what you should be watching. And that one's on Netflix, so it's not like something you need to run out and buy, like Sinbad, Beyond the Veil of the Mist, or Brain Candy. So just check it out, right? It's Brendan Fraser. Let's celebrate the man. He's a good hang. At least when I watch the movies. I don't know him personally, but I imagine he'd be a pretty good hang, right?
By all accounts, yeah. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend we know Brendan Fraser.
No, it'd be fun if we did, but no, we're just here. And actually, because we do this, it probably will never happen. I know I probably wouldn't willfully walk into a room with two people who've celebrated me every May for the past 7 years. Well, 6 years on the show, and it's never mind. Whatever. That's semantics. It's not even worth it. Anywho, yes. So it's Escape from Planet Earth, and then we're gonna throw over to the Brendan Fraser quiz of Brendan Fraser. Anything else to add, Siege, or should we just send it to us?
Just hi, future me, and I hear you're doing pretty damn good with those Quizabos.
Yes, you really threw me off there. Oh no, wait! Before we throw to it, I took a bunch of notes because I listened to what we were doing in the show. Where is it? Okay. I couldn't think of a movie starring Danny Baldwin that is essentially Cobra with Sylvester Stallone and Bridget. I don't remember her last name. She married Duff
Jones.
No, not Bridget Jones. Brigitte Nielsen.
Nielsen.
So it's essentially Cobra, but it was made in 1995 and it stars a Baldwin brother. It's called Fair Play. Fair Play is the movie I couldn't think of.
Jeez.
And that's the name of the novel that Cobra is based on. And the other thing is, we've been talking a lot about Brendan Fraser and his wife, Afton Smith. They were both born on December 3rd, a year apart.
Whoa.
Which is something I just found out.
No,
as I was listening to his stuff. So, like, there's some other things. It's addressing the quizzes that you've already heard, but I wanted to make sure that we got that out there for you. And so, without any further ado, I will throw to us for the Brendan Fraser quiz of Brendan Fraser. Thanks for listening to part 1, guys. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Say Report. I'm your host, Devin Decker, and joining me, my host companion, Sejan Sarwick. Sejan?
Hey, everybody. I'm actually really excited about the movie that we just watched because I have a sneaking suspicion that I had a good time with it. I've seen this movie 3 times, and I hated it the first time, and then have slowly come around on it each time since. So I'm betting this one's the one, Dev.
Well, with that knowledge in my pocket, I bet I hated it, because this will be my very first time watching Furry Vengeance.
Maybe it's just because we're talking about Brendan Fraser, but you said knowledge in my pocket, and I started singing Alanis Morissette in my head.
Because I got knowledge in my pocket, and the other one's buying a DVD of Georgia the Jungle. Yep, it worked. I loved it. Yeah, so Furry Vengeance, and I am here right now. I'm ready to quiz hard with a vengeance. So let's just hold it no longer. Quizmaster General Will Fournier is here for round 4 of the Brendan Fraser quiz of Brendan Fraser.
All I'm going to say is if we had made this week 3, man, that joke would have worked better. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, all I was thinking was it should be Quiz Hard 4.0, but
I hate you guys so
it's
much.
okay.
Live free or quiz
Justin
hard.
Long turns up.
I can be Kevin Smith, though, right? Can I be Kevin Smith in this one?
If you
Sure.
want to be Kevin, yeah. If that makes
Yeah,
me
it's up to
Justin
you, but
Long,
sure.
I think.
No,
And
I think
Will
Justin
Timothy.
Long.
What?
Oh, I'm Bruce
No,
Willis.
No, Will is Bruce Willis. I was gonna say he's Timothy Oliphant, but then he would get.
Dale could be Timothy Oliphant.
Dale
talk
can be
about the
Maggie
Oliphant
Q
together.
and Timothy Oliphant because she was a champion in Apex Legends, which is what delayed our recording right now. But good job, Dale. Keep
But she
on
won,
playing
so that's all that
Apex.
matters. If she'd lost, we would hate her.
Yeah, if she lost, it'd be like you wasted our time for an L. Man, humans suck, huh?
Especially these three. All right.
Which is why we're
Anyway.
celebrating Brendan Fraser History Month.
The human that doesn't.
suck.
He doesn't suck. He is a pillar of humanity, that man. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he'd
Yeah.
appreciate that.
I hope he would. Thank you, Brendan, for all of the fun and the
I
smiles.
want to start kicking Devin's ass. Let's do this.
Yeah,
All
what's
right,
up?
let's do
Tell
it.
us. Yeah, what's it
This
up?
is week 4. This is Sejan's cocky now.
This is Siege and has to be
Round
cocky.
4. Sejan's comeback. Sejan's gambit into round 4.
Bam. Wait,
There
no,
you go.
just quick reminder. Brendan Fraser History Month is all about the quizzes, and we decided to give you a quiz each week. So welcome to the 4th quiz. At this point, you should probably know what's going on, but the paramount of podcasting is you need to treat every episode like it's someone's first episode. Will isn't usually here, but it's a whole lot more fun when he is. So thank you,
Making
Will,
a
for
Batman
coming out.
movie or a Spider-Man movie, we always got to show somebody dying so that way I understand where the stakes are.
I hope I'm not the death you're sacrificing for stakes, but thank you.
No, it's just our dignity.
Oh, that's fine.
Oof. This
Whoa,
guy.
whoa, whoa. We had dignity?
I don't
This
have
is all-
humility.
All new to me.
Calling it back. All right, cool. So what's round 4 got in store for us, Mr. Will?
So far we've had a couple of get to know Brendan rounds, and then we've had a round of Brendan quotes with a fill in the phrases. As Tiffin is proud of saying. I'm sorry, I should have just said the actual title, and you could have jumped in with your pun. I apologize for taking it from
No, it's the best part about coming up with someone is when you slowly influence them to say what you've invented and brought into the world. That's how languages happen. Linguistics, people. Read
So
the
look
book.
for it in the dictionary next year. It's with a PH, but it's spoken, so it's hard to say.
How do we make a Brendan Fraser style Wordle game and become billionaires?
I don't know if the New York Times are going to buy that. They might, but it seems unlikely.
Just Wordle, but the answer's Brendan Fraser every week.
Every week, it's
Every day.
well, no, one day it's Brendan, the next day it's Fraser, and you've got to guess which way around it is.
It's like Sid Hoffman, Sid Frenchman, but with Brendan Fraser.
And sometimes
Pullman,
it's Fraser
Bill Jackson?
Brendan.
Honestly, I would hope that the New York Times doesn't buy it. I'd imagine some Canadian Gazette would pick it up.
Oh, that could be good, because then you could, like, every now and then curveball Mike Myers.
Every now and then, curveball, you have to write it in French.
What is the French for Brendan Fraser?
James.
James. James London.
I don't know. I think there's an X somewhere.
As an
silent.
accent on the second E.
Yeah.
What are we doing, folks? I thought I was taking a quiz. You guys are just
All
holding
right.
off because you know how bad I'm going to beat Devin this time.
Yeah, I'm nervous.
Yes.
I'm nervous, Siegen.
Quiz.
I could see you in my
Round-
back, in my rear view. You're about
the
to
new
crash
layout.
into me.
He's behind you. We've gone from triangle to square to seat is behind you.
We're in bobsled mode.
When you're in
We're a
reverse, things
3-man
generally connected
bobsled.
from behind, Tyrone.
Sorry.
You could get a jumbo jet to that time, right? I've come at it from a funny angle. Is my favourite quote. So hey, round 4. What we've got here, I have got a list of 6 awesome Brendan Fraser movies, obviously, and I'm going to give you the director, the year, and 2 co-stars, and I want you to name that film.
So
Oh,
I mean,
man. Okay,
I
okay,
I
okay.
feel like Will just pitched how we do a daily Brendan Fraser Wordle-esque game. Initially, you're just given the director, and then you're given a year, and then you're given a co-star and a co-star, and you have 4
See,
guesses.
I go the other way in order to make it progressively more difficult. Start with a low-listed co-star that has possibly been in more than one movie with him, and then work your way up to maybe a second lead. Then you get the director. Then you get the year.
I like it. I mean, it works. Either way, Will just gave us the blueprint to Brendel.
Mail it to ourselves. What are we doing? Don't record this.
Don't record it. But do record it, but don't record it.
This is how the Quebec Times gets it.
The
But we're
Quebec
not
Times
speaking in
doesn't
French,
want
so they don't
anything to do with us because we don't speak French.
Yeah, I said Frazier earlier. That's basically how it would be. And my
They owe
last
us.
name is French.
Yeah, the first time I went to visit Will in England, they're like, "Who are you staying with?" And I'm like, "I'm staying with my friend Will Fournier." And they're like, "That's a French last name." And I'm like, "Why are you busting my balls, customs? Why are you busting my balls?"
I mean, they're not wrong, but also it's like French people weren't allowed in the UK.
It was the weird. He's just like, "Huh? You're staying with someone last name Fournier? That's a French surname." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is. What are we doing here?"
He was just
I
showing
usually
off
don't
his
make it
knowledge
this
of
far.
Europe.
They see my first name and essentially just search me immediately. So
Oh, you need to come over with us. The first time I landed in Rhode Island when I was moving out there to join you folks at college, I got a full bag search as I came to the airport, and the guy who searched it, he was a lovely gentleman, but he could not say the letter R, and talking about Rhode Island was really tricky.
Welcome to
did not
Rhode
want to-
Island.
None of us fucking could.
And he was like, that used to be a party school. I was like, yep, sure, I believe so. It was a very tricky conversation, not to laugh at the man who was essentially deciding whether I was allowed to come into the country.
We were in the top 10 of Playboy for years, right?
And then they ticked us off
Then-
because they didn't want professionals. That's how that conversation always went.
We're too good at this. Let's make it a dry campus and ruin everything.
God, yeah, there used to be
Anyway,
like 2 bars on campus. 2.
And then it's like, oh, you can go to the Muse. And that one taxi might bring you home if you time it right. Anyway,
Yeah.
enough about college.
It's where we all met, though.
True.
What are
It is
you
the
doing?
origin story.
What was that?
It was
Don Cheadle.
Jaden's
Don
voice. It
Cheadle.
was Jaden's baby voice from Mr. Mayor. When he wants to get them like to forgive him, he talks in a British baby voice.
Good. I'm glad that you could justify that in a way that was not super offensive to
No, it's
Assumed
totally
it was Don Cheadle.
circling black. Anywho, what?
Yes.
Come on, quiz me.
What's-
Let's go
Daddy.
quiz
straight
us.
to question one. Question number 1. Director, Billy Kent. Year, 2013. Co-stars, Parker Posey and Julia Garner.
Ooh. Ooh.
What are you? Save it for the ASCU. What are you doing?
Yeah, that's a.
All right.
That's a solid
Question
one.
2. Director, Rich Wilkes. Year, 1995. Co-stars, French Stewart and Matthew McConaughey.
What? What?
French Stewart and Matthew McConaughey.
I get.
All right.
What a whoa!
I love the silence while you guys. It's good. I mean, it's great podcasting to have dead.
Yeah, well, it's not dead. I'm trying. That's why I was doing Adam Sandler noises.
If in doubt, Adam Sandler.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I got the first one. I think I got the first one because it's the one that I suggested, Devin, and he ignored this year. So I hope we get to talk about it. Sorry,
What
that's all
movie
I
did you
was getting at.
suggest that I ignored?
No, I'm not giving you the answer after I just said I thought it was the answer.
All right. Question 3. Director, Tom Vaughan. Year, 2010. Co-stars, Harrison Ford and Alan Ruck.
I love Alan Ruck. I'm just gonna put that on record.
He wasn't
What
initially
was
the name
year?
I
What was
had.
the year? What was the year? I missed the year. I'm
2010.
2010.
sorry. Oh, that was
Initially,
not
Alan
close.
Ruck was not the name I had, and then I saw him. I was like, nope, that's who we have to go
It
with.
has to be Alan Ruck. He's the best part of Speed because he's awful. Yes, he is.
Yes.
Yes.
So look, I'm using the word co-star quite liberally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
kind
works.
of picked up on it.
I mean, it
Yeah,
works
it
for
wasn't like- I
Brendel.
wasn't gonna
Let's
list
be
the-
honest.
Yeah, I wasn't going to pick the top 2 on the list and be like, you'll get this one straight away. You know, I want to give you guys a little bit of effort involved. Question 4. Director Harold Ramis. Year 2000. Co-stars Toby Huss and Orlando Jones.
I love that Harold Ramis directed this movie.
Didn't he also write it?
Yeah. Well, it's if we.
Well, right.
Yeah, we'll get to it, but yeah.
Well,
okay. I like that Orlando Jones is on Abbott Elementary right now.
I haven't watched any Abbott Elementary. I wanted to have the whole season because I knew it was something I would love.
It's got a lot of heart.
I believe it.
I think you will. I think you will indeed. Can you remind me, French Stewart, was that for number 2 or number 3?
Number 2.
Number 2.
Ooh.
And Matthew McConaughey.
Okay.
And the McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey's throwing me because there's a thing in my head, but like I think it might be because of another thing. Oh, never mind. We'll get to it.
Oh, you're so vain, Sejan.
Question number 5.
Because I think the song is about me?
Yes.
That's the one. You just walked in like a yacht.
You walked in like a yacht, you piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, more floated. I guess yachts float, but that's fine. Hey, question 5's cool. Director Les Mayfield. Year 1992. Co-stars Rose McGowan and Pauly Shore.
Oh. But. Well. All right.
Yep.
This can't be that easy, can it?
It is. I appreciate it.
Now and then.
I can't believe that Rose McGowan would then go on to be in another Pauly Shore movie and another Brendan Fraser movie.
She likes who she likes.
I really want to watch Biodome again. Like, just spoilers for my life.
Sounds like we're probably going to be watching Biodome sometime soon.
Sounds like soon coming up in a very special episode.
Sounds like we're going to Biodome.
And the last question of round 4.
That's right. 6. Yeah, okay.
Potential for, who knows how good Seaton's doing so far, but I feel a win's coming. We'll see. Question number 6. Director James F. Robinson. Year 1997. Co-stars Toby Huss and Lou Rawls.
God, Toby Huss is amazing.
Yeah, he could have been in a number of these questions.
Yeah.
He's common Brendan Fraser.
I am totally going off of only the year at this point, but I'm doing it.
I'm doing the same thing. I got to be honest with you.
I wanted to say Brain Candy, but the year doesn't make sense.
No, unfortunately not. It'd be nice too, but Will didn't know we were doing Brain Candy until tonight.
It would have been an interesting turn of events if I picked the 5 you're talking about.
It would have, yes.
It would have made it easier for you guys, I guess.
I do actually. Never mind. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll get there.
All right, we all got some answers. We got everything we want to do so far.
I'm not happy with this round. I thought I'd be happier with this round.
So number 2. Okay, let's do number 1. Let's do them in order.
Yeah, a good place to start is the first one. All right, so we had Billy Kent, 2013, Parker Posey, and Julie Garner.
I'm pretty sure this is Hairbrained, which was the other one I wanted to do for the families movies. I might be wrong about that.
I have no answer. I was so lost by the year.
Well, Sejan takes the point with Hairbrained.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh, only know it because we were looking at these movies the other day. I gotta be honest.
Fair.
Didn't know that movie
That's
existed before 3 days ago.
Forgot our conversation from 3 days ago, is what I'm admitting.
Yeah.
So, okay.
All right. You're confused by McConaughey.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if McConaughey is the reason because of Dazed and Confused that I'm thinking it's Glory Days.
That's what I wrote down too, though. Oh, well, School Days, the weird Ben Affleck movie that Brendan Fraser has an uncredited cameo in.
So is School Days your answer or is Glory Days your answer?
School Days is my answer.
Well, then Sejan gets the point for Glory Days.
Fah! Cock sucking the duck.
Yes, Fred Stewart and Matthew McConaughey do appear casually in that film.
Damn. Yeah, because the Matthew McConaughey one, I was worried that I was kind of just fucking myself.
Damn it. I knew that one.
You're currently a half point behind, Sejan.
Oh, don't tell me that now.
I mean, there's nothing you can do about it right now, I guess, but we'll find out. Question 3. We got Tom Vaughan, 2010, Harrison Ford, and Alan Ruck.
I went with Furry Vengeance.
I went with Furry Vengeance.
I imagine Harrison Ford must play the raccoon, right?
He's the ocean. I'm the ocean.
I'm afraid
I want my family back.
there's no points for anyone in this one.
Oh, damn.
I went off of year
Extraordinary
only.
Measures.
Oh, Extraordinary Measures.
The doctor one, right? Isn't that where everybody's a doctor in that one?
Yes,
Yes.
everyone's a doctor.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right. It's just the way you said it. Isn't that the one where everyone's a doctor in that one? Yeah. Way to go, Siskel.
Yeah, he left Scrubs and then when he made that, right?
Yeah, he left being a doctorish in Scrubs and went somewhere else.
He left
All
a
right,
show where
question.
everyone was a doctor and then went to be a doctor.
He just got the bug while he was there. He's like, God, I want to be a doctor in something. No? Okay. Question 4, which we all know the answer to.
Do we?
Howard Ramis, 2000, Toby Huss and Orlando Jones.
I really like Bedazzled for the last music in that movie. That song is so good. It's Bedazzled though, right?
It is Bedazzled. You're both correct. Congratulations. 1 point each. Question 5, which I believe we also both know the answer to. Les Mayfield, 1992, Rose McGowan, and Pauly Shore.
It's Encino Man.
Encino Man.
Encino Man.
92 though, I'm like, oh, it could be School Ties. And he just did Ben Affleck.
Pauly Shore wasn't in it though. That's what gave it away.
Wait, Pauly Shore isn't in School Ties? I watched a very different movie.
And our final question of round 4 to bring it all home. James F. Robinson, 1997, Toby Huss, and Lou Rawls. What we saying?
I said George of the Jungle,
I also said George of the Jungle.
but it doesn't sound right now that I'm saying
Toby
it
Huss
out
is like
loud.
the voice of the parrot.
It doesn't sound right.
Is it Duckman? Is it Duckman?
It's Still Breathing.
What the fuck is Still Breathing?
It's a Brendan Fraser film, 1997, directed by James F. Robinson.
Oh shit!
Starring Toby Huss and Lou Rawls.
Yes, it looked like a random thing. The cast list is insane. Just the naming of the characters was really where I was enjoying it.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Devin Decker here, coming in from the future. What you've just heard is pretty much Brendan Fraser History Month 7 and the movies that we'll be looking at. Obviously not Bedazzled and Encino Man, but, you know, Glory Days, Extraordinary Measures, Still Breathing, and Hairbrained to shut Siegin' up, so look forward to it. Now, back to the show in progress.
When artist
So-
and street performer Fletcher,
Yes.
played by Brendan Fraser, thinks con artist Roz, played by Joanna Going, is the woman he's seen in a vision, he has no idea she sees him as her next victim.
Wow. It sounds like that movie where Keanu Reeves is not dying, but Charlize Theron is dying, and November is in the title. What's that movie?
November Man.
Is that the movie? Yeah, November Man. That's a good
November
movie.
Man.
I like that movie.
I can't tell if this movie's supposed to be like romantic or a thriller.
Don't
like a
worry.
comedy,
I'm going to
or
put
a-
something in later where we say that that's what we're going to look at for next Brendan Fraser History Month. So we'll get to watch and find out.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's only a few, like, people don't have real names. Like, if you look at it properly, like, Stephen Lambert, the fourth in the credits, is listed as Man in Alley. And Lou Rawls is the Tree Man.
I mean, when do we get to do with honors? That's my big thing.
I know. I almost wrote with honors instead of George of the Jungle. We can do with honors. We can pop out one of these and do it. Maybe it's another 5-week May. It actually seems like it might be based on the fact that, because the first will be a Monday because the first is a Sunday. So then 1, 8, 15, 22, 29. Yeah, it'll be a 5-week one. So the fifth movie will be with honors.
Definitely a 5-week month, definitely.
I'm an excellent mentor.
I'm an excellent calendar.
Calendar. That makes more
Oh,
sense.
then we call the movie Calendar Man. And,
Oh boy.
and we have to look out for Batman. Somebody's gonna die.
Is that what he's raising money by making?
So wait a minute.
Naked calendars.
What is the current standing?
I believe
So
you're
the
one
current
behind.
standing at the end of round 4, 12 to Devon, 11 and a half to CJ.
Oh, it's so close.
We can't leave it there. There's going to be a round 5. I'm going to have to. I've got faith. The comeback has been strong from CJ in the second half of the round, and I'd like to give you one more go.
I told you last round I was getting serious.
I could have had 13 points if I ever trusted in myself with the title of that weird fucking Ben Affleck movie.
You can't blame Ben Affleck for everything.
I don't blame Ben
And you
Affleck for
already blame
everything.
him
I
for a
blame
lot.
Matt Damon. Matt Damon is where me and Ben Affleck had our first little schism, and it has only grown and grown as the years have gone on. I could have written Good Will Hunting with Ben Affleck, but no. Matt Damon is alphabetically earlier than me.
Kevin, what's the year on Duckman anyway?
Duckman? 93?
Yeah, is Duckman like 93, 94? Yeah.
The TV show?
Yeah, I just wonder how early it is for him.
93.
Hmm.
Why?
I'm just curious.
Okay.
We're talking about Brendan Fraser. Why could I not ask questions about Brendan Fraser's film career while we sit here and talk about Brendan Fraser's film career?
Well, that's more of his television career, so I guess that's what threw me off. Also, I forgot that Brendan Fraser was in Duckman. I think of Jason Alexander and Tim Curry.
Right. The main characters as opposed to just like a couple of times that I think he shows up.
Doesn't he show up as Brendan Fraser?
Is that what happens? Now
I think there's one that he does show up as Brendan Fraser in.
Salmon's Kegel is apparently his name in this. Oh my god!
Oh.
All right, well, look,
You know
more
what?
on this
There's
later.
also that episode of The Simpsons that he's in, King of the Hill, which is weird.
Oh my god! So
But
many things just got said to me.
later on in the Say Report celebrating Brendan Fraser History Month, his myriad of television appearances. We still have material. We didn't maybe have to dip into brain candy this year. I apologize. But isn't it better to couch it in like 4 really strong Brendan Fraser ones as opposed to, just do a whole month of dregs?
Sure, man. I'm not. That was so last week.
Right. It's called whatever. All right. So
Come and gone.
So the scores are 12 for me, 11.5 for Sejan, and Will has just surprised us with the fact that there's going to be a 5th round, which sucks because I didn't do any prep for these first 4 rounds, and now I feel super unprepared for a round 5.
Do what I do. Just show up and have fun.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Hey, you turned up way prepared with like a pencil and a notebook this time. I mean, gone are the days of scribbling on a napkin.
Yeah, I definitely came with a prepared notebook in front of me and didn't just write over a bunch of Adam Sandler notes at all.
Oh my god. Please tell me it was for Chuck and Larry at least.
You know what? It actually might have been exactly that.
I know how you work, which is that's why we do a podcast together.
Nope. Apatow stink is written here, so.
I'm sure I've referenced it, but I was on a podcast called The Hold Up Podcast, and I talked about Adam Sandler. They were seeing if The Wedding Singer still held up, and I mentioned we did Funny People, and then it just turned into a discussion of Funny People that culminated in one of the hosts, John, watching Funny People. Because I reminded him of it. So, that was a fun little moment. Getting people to watch Funny People.
Yeah, just like we got everybody to watch Brendan Fraser over the last few years, right? It's all us.
Yep,
I like the fact that we can claim that. And it's not an outrageous claim.
We have literal recorded evidence.
We do. We have 5 years worth, really. Now 6 years worth that supports it. But yeah, so that's round 4. There's going to be a round 5 now to determine who is the grand poobah of the Brendan Fraser quiz of Brendan Fraser. Maybe there'll be some sort of belt or crown.
Of 2022. Let's not act like it's of all time, but we'll put a year on it.
We've got more to come.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. We're not going to suddenly stop celebrating May as Brendan Fraser History Month.
Well, as much as I would love to just snatch glory from you from the last 5 years, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it could be your glory days. You fucking idiot, Devin. You fucking idiot.
Okay.
All right. So,
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
if you are rooting for Siegen, go and tell him on Twitter at Siege versus the World.
And if you want to wish Kevin James a happy birthday, you can reach on out to Devin at Devin D Decker and say happy birthday to Kevin James.
Really? The 23rd is Kevin James's birthday? That's excellent.
No, I've been doing everybody from today, man.
Oh, Jesus! Fuck
Fuck
me in the asshole.
From today.
You
Johnny
jerk!
Kevin James share a birthday?
Yeah, isn't that great?
Time out.
Also, to Dana Brewster. I didn't forget about you, by the way. I just wanted to. Jet Li is in here. I had a whole bunch of shit.
Wow, this is a stacked day for birthdays.
Yeah,
I feel like April is kind of a stacked month for birthdays, if
Well,
I'm
it is
being
spring,
completely
Devin.
honest. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
And the Lord, what? Did you?
It's a
Wait,
9-month
spring is-
gestation period, so that means that
Spring is literally the time of new life and the new like watch Bambi, motherfucker.
oh, okay, but they weren't conceived in spring.
No, but everybody is born and comes forth and it blossoms in spring. That is the time. That is what this time is all about.
All I remember is that in school on April 9th, it was 12 people's birthday.
Yeah. Again, the springtime is a heavy time for birth because everybody spent all winter taking care of them babies in them.
Yep, that
It's a good time of year because there's something else going on. Like you're not, nudging into Christmas or something else and stuff. So like, April's cool because like you get your birthday in the middle. Like I'm quite pleased that
You're not coming up against anything. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's really
all that I
strange.
share my birthday with is Brendan Fraser History Month, and that's fine.
It is strange that we have a bank holiday Monday in January, February, and then we have no bank holiday Mondays until May, and then every month has another bank holiday Monday through to the end of the year. Like you're not like these 2 months have no holiday Mondays.
You work for the government.
I do work for the government.
Yeah, that would.
It depends on Easter. Easter gets thrown around wherever it wants.
Oh, Easter's always on a Sunday. It is the least thrown around holiday.
No, you get.
But it could be
Friday,
any
Friday,
Sunday.
Friday. Yeah,
It could be any given
depending
Sunday.
on where you are, it could be Friday or Monday, though. Is what I think what Will's getting.
Oh, I don't get a day off for Easter. I've never gotten a day
really?
off for
I got-
Easter.
I got 2. It's great.
Australia, you get 2 days off for Easter. Will bring
I
us
mean,
home.
you get 4, I guess, because you get the Saturday, Sunday as well. You didn't have to go to work on those days. I got the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Long weekend.
They celebrate the whole death of Jesus into the resurrection, really.
No, we just like having days off. I mean, I'm sure some people celebrate it. Other people just like having time off.
Will, take us home.
Okay. It's been great. I'm glad you've joined us for these 4, and I will see you for the surprise part 5. It's been emotional. Here's me.
It's the finale.
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devin Decker and Stephen Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.